In a dark room, several balls glow in a vending machine. Someone enters the room. The girl behind the counter greets the guy who entered and says that Jinta, gacha, is a wrecker. She says that this time everything will be different from usual. Jinta says it's interesting and he will do everything quickly. He will assemble his harem some time ago. Heaven, the divine garden. When Jinta came to his senses, he was sitting on a chair alone in a completely white room. And then someone announced that 24-year-old Kazami Jinta had accidentally died on his way to work, that someone turned out to be a nice girl. She asks if she said it right. Jinta, looking at the girl, is surprised that a beautiful blonde with blue eyes is sitting opposite him. After a few seconds, the room took on clear boundaries. Jinta was now sitting in front of the reception desk, with other people walking around him. Jinta didn't understand what was going on, and he asks the girl who she is. The girl makes a small bow and says that her name is Liafu. She's the goddess of life and death. Liafu looks like a teenager. Jinta is at a loss. Liafu continues to say that this is the place where they choose where his soul will go after death. Liafu tells us that if a person reaches nirvana, then he can be reborn in the same world, or in another. Jinta, a little nervous, asks what she means. Looking at the information about Jinta, the girl confidently says that he is dead. Jinta suddenly gets up from her chair and is happy, shouting at the top of her voice, which scares Liafu very much. Liafu, confused, asks why he is so happy about this. Did he really damage his brain when he was dying? Jinta happily says that now he doesn't have to go to work all the time. Jinta is glowing with happiness. He happily continues to say that now he cannot go to work at all and how cool it is. Other people turn to look at them with interest, and Liafu asks him to stop shouting because everyone is watching, and it's starting to embarrass the girl. The girl thinks that it looks like his life was very bad. She sighs and then goes on to say that in any case, they decided that he would go to heaven. Jinta asks again in surprise, and Jinta repeats that he will go to nirvana. Liafu agrees. The guy says that he wants to be reborn in another world. Liafu said earlier that this is possible. Liafu is at a loss why he needs another world, what he is going to do there. Jinta abruptly approaches the girl and thereby scares her. He says that there is only one thing he can do that he can strive for. He can conquer a whole crowd of girls and create a harem. Liafu doesn't like the idea of junta, and she looks at him with disapproval and annoyance. Trying to justify himself, the guy stammers that of course he wants to do more than that. Jinta says he wants status, fame, and money. All the things he couldn't achieve. The things he always wanted to do. He enthusiastically says that he wants to get it all. Liafu bursts out laughing, and a second later, she's laughing at the top of her voice. Laughing and holding her stomach, she says he won't be able to do it. Jinta, feeling awkward, says that he read novels and thought that if he went to another world, he might succeed. Wiping away her tears, she says that this is not so. She means that they don't even know who Jinta will be able to transform into. Liafu says that an ordinary man, like Jinta, can at best be reborn into a small handkerchief, a small piece of cloth. Jinta is shocked by this. He didn't expect it. Liafu continues to say that she doesn't know what he read there, but he should forget his dreams and go to heaven. This situation is starting to anger Jinta. Liafu turns away and says she doesn't have time to waste her time on dreamers. Jinta jumps at her from the top. Jinta asks her not to laugh at the man's dreams. Liafu screams. The rest of the people in the audience turn to look at them. The girl asks him to stop, and she asks what he's doing. Junta grabs her hand and asks her to send him to another world. Liafu says it's impossible. Jinta tries to persuade her and says that if she doesn't do what he asks, or he won't let her go. Liafu tries to run away from him and pulls away, but she can't do it and tells him to stop, because she refuses him for a reason. She tells us that if she voluntarily or accidentally sends a person to another world, a lot of bad things can happen. Jinta says he doesn't care and tries to grab her. Now he's aiming for Liafu. The girl is trying to escape from him. Jinta notices the buttons on the table and asks that it is a path selection button. He asks Liafu to send him to another world faster. But Liafu says she can't do that. Jinta grabs Liafu's hand and says that in that case he will help her. Lifting her hand, Jinta notices something and says in shock that this can't be happening. Lifa feels awkward and asks what happened. Holding her hands, Jinta says that she looks very much like a teenager. Lifa is confused, and it hurts her. Jinta clicks his tongue and doesn't quite say where he can find a goddess with good features. He loudly asks where she is hiding and asks her to come out. The bodice of Jinta's statement turns red and goes limp in his hands. Jinta looks around for another goddess. Ignoring the girl, Jinta says that he needs to find the goddess. Hearing this, Lifa starts twitching and says that this is not the case. Barely holding the girl, the guy asks her not to twitch and calm down. Because Lifa was twitching, she accidentally presses the reverse button. Noticing this, Jinta and Lifa freeze in confusion. A few seconds later, a bright light illuminates the room and a magic circle appears under their feet. And this circle starts to glow even brighter. After that, a table with the name of Jinta appears. The mechanisms begin to move and begin to spin. Jinta is very happy about this outcome, but Lifa cannot believe what is happening, and she panics. An inscription appears stating that they are being reborn into another world. The magic circle doubles and surrounds Jinta and Lifa. They are lifted into the air and the room absorbs bright light. The main characters are transported to another world, and thus Jinta is reborn in another world. It's a clear day. Somewhere in the sky, there's a flash and a bright ray of light hits the ground. Steam is billowing in the place where the beam struck. Jinta, who was lying in the pit, says with displeasure that this is not the most pleasant way to reincarnate. Suddenly, something flies over the guy, and the shadow of a huge creature falls on him. Looking closer, he sees a huge dragon and is surprised by it. Jinta found himself in some magical world where dragons fly. Looking around, he happily says that he has finally found himself in another world. Looking at himself, Jinta thinks that he does not feel reborn. Maybe this is reincarnation. But Jinta feels that he's sitting on something. It turned out that he fell right on top of the goblin. Jinta sees the goblin's status. Noticing this, Jinta quickly jumps off him, and he says it looks like he's not alive anymore, and it seems he killed him when he fell on him. A stone falls from the goblin. Jinta notices this, and picking up the stone, he examines it from all sides and notices that the stone is silver. He decides to keep it for himself and puts it in his pocket. A status window appears in front of Jinta, and he decides to examine what this window shows. Remembering Lifa, he thinks that if she were next to him, he could ask her. Carefully examining the status window, Junta says that even if you just look at it, his luck indicator is definitely kind of strange. Suddenly, Jinta hears someone screaming and looks to where it's coming from, and he sees that the bodice is falling. The girl falls directly on Jinta and several stones fly apart from the force of the fall. Lifa slowly recovers from the fall and thinks that's why she ended up here too. When Lifa comes to, she sees that she has fallen on Jinta. Jinta addresses the goddess of death and life. He says she came because she was worried about him. Lifa gets angry and says that this is not the case, and she is here because she was also moved because of him. Jinta just smiles at this. After a while, Jinta notices that she can't go back. Looking at her hands, Lifa says that she cannot contact the heavenly world for some reason. She tried to send them a message, but hers just wasn't connected to the heavenly world. It hadn't happened before. Somehow awkwardly, Jinta says that maybe there was some kind of bug due to the fact that he transferred them to another world against the will of the higher ones. Lifa is perplexed. Jinta says that his status is also strange. After opening the status window, he shows the luck indicator and says that such a 999999 luck indicator is not normal. After seeing the bonus indicator, he says that this cannot be after all, the limit is only 99. Somehow nervously, Lifa says that, in general, a normal person should not see the status, and looks away. The girl doesn't finish and falls silent. Lifa looks at Jinta in silence, and the guy feels awkward, somehow embarrassed. She says she can't see anything. Confused, Jinta says that it's probably because it's his status. The girl repeats that she does not see his status, but the goddess must be able to look into them. Uncertainly, Jinta says that this is probably a bud too. They look at each other in silence, when suddenly Lifa, crying, says what a bug it is. How will they return to her? Jinta tries to calm her down and says that they did not imagine that such a thing could happen. Already crying, Lifa says that it's his fault. Because of him, she pressed the transfer button. even though she said that it was impossible. Jinta calms her down and asks her not to cry, even though she pressed the button. Jinta apologizes and says that actually he didn't want to drag her out, and it's his fault. Liafu sits silently and resentfully. Wiping away her tears, she says there's nothing she can do. Jinta wonders what she's going to do now. Turning away, the goddess says that everything is fine, and most likely help will arrive soon. She's just killing time waiting. Several dragons are flying over them. Jinta says that now he has a chance to make his dream come true. She adds that now he can do whatever he wants. After listening to her, Jinta thinks about it. He asks if she wants to go with him. Liafu is surprised by this suggestion. Jinta says that in the end, it's his fault that the goddess was dragged into this mess. This admission surprises Liafu. He continues that he would like to do something to justify his guilt to her. Jinta smiles, pleased with himself, and looks at the girl expectantly. Liafu asks if he is sure of this. If he is with her, she can pull him back when help arrives for her. She's trying to scare him with it. After some thought, Jinta replies that then he will have to go to heaven. This surprises the girl. Jinta explains that leaving a crying girl alone is definitely against his ambitions. Having said that, he smiles happily. Embarrassed, Liafu says she doesn't understand what he's talking about, and she didn't cry. Getting up from the ground, she agrees and comes closer to the guy. She says that if he insists so much, she will go with him until help arrives for her. Already smiling happily, the girl says that she is wondering how he is going to make amends to her. Liafu joined the team. Somewhere in the forest, the goddess asks him what his name is. The guy replies that Liafu can just call him Jinta. Liafu wonders if he's sure. Smiling, the girl says that he can just call her Liafu. Jinta stops and looks at her, and the girl asks what they were talking about earlier. Remembering what they were talking about, Liafu says that she will be with him, albeit for a short time, and notices that the guy is very lucky. Jinta asks why that is, and he adds that maybe it's because the bodice is cute. This takes the girl by surprise. Blushing deeply, Jinta stammers and says that's not what she meant, and twirling her finger, she says that she meant that she has enough knowledge about this world, and he happily tells us that whether it's geography, information about creatures, or information about ordinary things, Liafu says that first of all, they should go in that direction, to the town of Kokine. She suggests they take a look there. Jinta is surprised by this knowledge and says that she is knowledgeable enough. Delighted, Liafu says it's natural. She's a goddess after all, and he can ask anything. The guy agrees and remembers something. He's looking for something in his pocket. Jinta says there's something you wanted to ask the beautiful goddess Liafu about. He's about the thing he picked up. Liafu is somehow displeased, saying that he says he doesn't fully evaluate her. Jinta takes the stone out of her pocket and asks if he knows anything about it. The bodice is carefully viewed, and he says that this magic crystal is called a core. They fall from monsters, and he can distinguish their quality by color. After examining the color of the stone, the girl is surprised, and she says in complete surprise that it is a silver core, and where he was able to find it. Jinta calmly says that he picked it up from the goblin he had pinned down. Liafu is a little shocked by this. Jinta asks that silver is so rare. Liafu stammers that it is. The girl explains that, by the way, this core is in the second place in terms of rarity. The rainbow crystal is in the first place, and the golden crystal is in the third. Liafu adds that if he sells the crystal, he can get 100,000 rin. Jinta is a little surprised. After that, the goddess explains that it's like 100,000 yen, and she praises the main character. Jinta feels awkward and, turning away, says that even so, he still has a strange feeling. Liafu freaks out and says that she has never seen such a combination of circumstances. Just be grateful for luck. She says that usually he needs to go into the dungeon just to find one such piece. Jinta is surprised by such a rarity. Liafu tells him to just think. He probably wouldn't have been able to find 100,000 on the road. Jinta agrees with her. Jinta says that if he can get enough of them, then Liafu won't need to break the logger. Liafu doesn't know what to say to him, and she says if she's sure about it. Jinta confidently says that this is the case. Jinta says there's already a lot going on, so she shouldn't worry about it. Liafu agrees and happily thanks him. Seeing her smile, Jinta gets embarrassed and says quietly that it's not worth it. Seeing his face, Liafu calls him. After a few seconds, Jinta turns away and says that they need to go to that city. Liafu is worried and asks him to stop. After catching up with Jinta, the girl says that she needs to put the core in the vault. She can teach him how to use it. Jinta listens attentively to the girl, and sheepishly remembers her smile. The main characters approach the gates of the city. Liafu says that when they come, it's the town of Cocaine. Jinta is happy and admires the city. Although the city of Cocaine was small, the streets were busy. Looking around, Jinta says that this city is more lively than he thought, and he gets the feeling from these streets. The main characters come out of a small shop and thank the owner. Holding the money in her hands and with sparks in her eyes, Jinta says admiringly that they were really able to sell it. He happily says that there are 100,000 rings here, just like the girl said. Complacently, Liafu says that this is natural, because she is great after all. Jinta adds that it's good that he picked up that pebble. Liafu wonders if he would have picked up something that couldn't be sold. Jinta doesn't hesitate to say that he probably would have picked up only her underwear, and calmly continues that they need to find a place where they can stay the night. Liafu is displeased and asks what he said before. Jinta repeats that they need to find a place for the night. Liafu didn't ask that. Liafu stops a little and the characters hear someone asking to stop. A couple is arguing on the side. A woman asks a man to stop. This is the last money. The man says that one more time and he will definitely be able to win. Jinta looks at them and asks what it is. The girl says a little more slowly that this is a gacha point. Jinta is interested and asks what it is. Liafu explains that this is something like gambling. She says that this is a machine that contains a core, and depending on the color of the core, valuable prizes may fall out. But no one knows if they will be lucky. After listening to her, Jinta says that you just have to rely on luck. The girl confirms this and says that this is a gacha point. She goes on to say that there are many luxury items among the prizes. Jinta is delighted. Liafu adds that most of them are garbage. This makes Jinta a little upset. He asks what anyone can possibly gain here. Liafu replies that, of course, but the probability is extremely low and it takes incredible luck to get something. Jinta smiles mysteriously. He says that if you have enough luck, you can get something. They enter the gacha point. Liafu, running after him, asks if he is sure about this. Jinta says she just wants to try it. Approaching the counter, Jinta sees that one attempt is worth 1,000 rin. Liafu tries to stop him and tells him not to do this, and he can only get garbage. Moreover, the gacha point is very dangerous. Excitement can completely capture it. Jinta calmly says that everything is fine and asks her to believe him. Seeing Jinta's reaction, the girl asks why he is so calm. Jinta tries to explain and says that the goddess is with him after all. Liafu is embarrassed by this, and the people who were nearby, hearing this, whisper to each other. Jinta approaches the counter and addresses the seller, and he says he wants to try it once. The girl at the counter says that if he pays 10,000 rin, he can try 11 times, one free. An unknown man walks up and says that he would agree to a snowstorm of Jinta. Other men say that he will have so many attempts. At this time, Liafu tugs Jinta's sleeve and silently asks with her eyes to disagree with this. After a moment's thought, Jinta refuses and says she only wants to try it once. The girl says she understood. The unknown man just nods his shoulders. And Jinta thinks that if he's so lucky, like Liafu said, then he really has a chance. Jinta reaches out and scrolls for the gacha machine, and a ball falls out. With his status, he will succeed. Jinta opens the balloon and it glows brightly. All the people who were there are surprised, even the seller. The seller says it's a victory. It's a special prize. Confetti is flying all around. Jinta takes out a rainbow crystal and rejoices. The rest of the people are shocked by the guy's luck. It's impossible after all. Seeing this, Liafu says that this is an iridescent core. It is the rarest. Out of surprise, she asks if this is real. People around are also surprised and ask who this guy is. Jinta happily says that he told you it was true, his status. The seller congratulates Jinta and says that the prize is from this core. The special prize is the Lavatin sword. The chain of the sword falls. Lavatin is received. The main characters are very happy about it. Somewhere in the bar, people are discussing that the main characters were able to win Lavatin. Upon hearing this, the man is surprised and says that he has been striving for this for several years. His interlocutor agrees and says that he once heard that this sword resolves a behemoth like a pie. In the same bar, Jinta hears men talking. Liafu notices that they have made up their mind enough in the city. The guy agrees with her. At the same time, Jinta reads the description of the sword. Noticing this, the girl says that this sword is kind of cool. He asks what the user is. The guy reads the description and says that this is an ultra super rare. That is, the rarest type of items. This sword is the rarest. Upon hearing this, the girl replies that he can sell this sword for hundreds of millions. It puts the guy in a state of shock, and he says that selling this sword is a waste of time. Liafu asks in surprise if he is going to sell it. The girl continues to say that this sword belongs to the previous hero, who defeated the Demon King with it. But after that, no one could use this sword, and it was transported around the world. Therefore, Liafu doesn't think Jinta will be able to use it at all. Jinta is unhappy, and says they will never know if they don't try. And Jinta eats the last piece of meat. Jinta says he was thinking what to do with it if he couldn't use it after checking it. Upset, Liafu says that they may be hunted by robbers, and therefore selling the sword is the best choice, unless, of course, Jinta asks her. The waitress approaches them and thanks them for waiting. She says their dessert, the ice by Nega, is ready. When Liafu sees the dessert, she is immensely happy, and Jinta asks if she likes it. Liafu nods happily. Already at night at the hotel, Liafu sits on the bed and says with relief that she is full. Jinta notices that the food here is very tasty. Suddenly, Jinta notices something. Lying on the bed, she says that she has been in the heavenly world for too long. She'll have to stay here a little longer. She turns over. Liafu wonders what he plans to do next, and she asks if he will follow the path of adventure. After thinking a little, he says that the path of adventure is the fastest way to rise in rank. Liafu adds that the risk is also high. Jinta confidently says that he can take on these risks. Jinta says it's all about making her ambitious plans come true. Liafu looks at him sheepishly, and when she gets up, she tells him to calm down, because as long as she's around, they're safe. She keeps saying that he can be calm. She can teach him everything she knows about this world. Liafu proudly says that she is level 999. She is the strongest goddess. Jinta just can't believe her words. Liafu asks why he has such a face. The guy says that her characteristics are similar to those of that goblet. Liafu is surprised and can't believe it. She says it can't be, and he has to double-check. Liafu serves from the edge of the bed. She bangs her head, and her little crown falls off. Liafu is terribly embarrassed and blushes. Jinta helps her up. Liafu is shocked and asks why there is so much damage from a simple fall, trying to support her somehow. Jinta says that maybe this is a bug that is related to their movement. This upsets Liafu, and she lies down on the bed and turns away. She says she doesn't care anymore. Jinta carefully descends the stairs. The owner of the hotel notices him and asks where he is going at such a late hour. Jinta replies that he just can't sleep a little. He thinks it's hard to stay calm when there's a little girl sleeping across from him. He tells the owner of the hotel that he will go for a walk for a while and will be there soon. And he goes outside. He thinks he's going to try using Laviton next. Jinta is going to check the sword quickly, and he walks towards the gate. When he reaches the gate, he sees the guard sleeping soundly, which is even to his advantage. He walks past him. After walking a little further than the city, he finds a clearing and decides that this is the right place. And it opens the storage for things. The guy pulls out a sword from there, and he thinks that this storage is very useful. He grabs the hilt of his sword and pulls it out of its scabbard, and he holds it up proudly. Looking at the sword, he thinks that even if he can't use it, the sword looks pretty good to him. He says he remembers that the sword has magical abilities. After opening the description of the sword, he wants to try the dark thread. Holding the sword in front of him, he tries to focus on the cobblestone. He holds the sword confidently and closes his eyes, even though he doesn't know how the sword works. Small, shimmering particles appear around it, and a magic circle appears under his feet. Circles also appear around the blade of the sword. Jinta opens her eyes in surprise. A dark thread begins to swirl around the blade, and after a few seconds, the sword emits a strong stream of energy. Jinta is thrown back by the flow of energy. The cloud of magic reaches the stone, and seeing this, Jinta thinks that this is how energy feels. But that's when the monster screams. Jinta raises her head and looks in his direction. It was his magic that hit the monster. A few seconds later, the monster dies, and Junta realizes with horror that it was not a boulder. As Jinta gets closer to the monster, she sees that it wasn't a boulder, and it reveals the characteristics of the monster. It was the Lord of the Plains, Behemoth. He sheathes his sword in horror and thinks that killing a behemoth in one blow is quite frightening. Suddenly, he sees something on the ground. He returns to the hotel late at night. Going up the stairs, he doesn't feel well. It looks like he spent a lot of mana. When he opens the door of the room, he thinks that he will sleep soundly through the night. Liafu asks where he went. Jinta sees that Liafu is very angry at him, and tears have gathered at the corners of her eyes. Jinta is lying when he says that he is walking nearby. Liafu says he didn't tell her that, and he made her worry. Jinta apologizes. He thought Liafu was fast asleep. Awkwardly, Jinta asks if something has happened. Liafu looks at him in silence, and after a few seconds says that she thought he had abandoned her and dumped her somewhere alone. This surprises Jinta a bit. Jinta jokes at her and asks that she cried because of it. Ashamed of the bodice, she says she didn't cry. Laughing, Jinta says he didn't know she was such a crybaby, and he strokes her head to calm her down. Liafu gets angry and repeats that she didn't cry and asks him to stop stroking her. Louder, she says she wasn't crying. It's just Jinta is blind, and Liafu asks why he just can't give up. Grabbing his shirt, she tells him not to leave without saying a word. Jinta says he understood and asks her to let him go. From the pressure of the bodice, Jinta stumbles over the edge of the bed and they both lose their balance. The main characters fall on the bed. The bodice falls from the top onto the jeans, and they accidentally touch lips. They look at each other speechlessly, out of awkwardness. They realize the situation, and the main characters blush. The bodice is redder, abruptly pulls away from the jeans. Liafu hurriedly asks the guy for forgiveness and says that this is not what it seems. The girl starts to feel dizzy. Jinta doesn't know what to do. From such stress, the girl falls back on the bed. Jinta is still in shock and doesn't know how to react. After a while, he says it's time to go to bed and puts the girl down and goes to bed himself. The guy remembers what happened earlier, how Liafu almost cried because she was scared that Jinta had left her. And the guy thinks that she moved here because of him, and praised the bug that zeroed out her powers. She has a right to worry. The next day, in the morning, Liafu wakes up unhappy. Jinta wishes her a good morning. The girl also responds to him. The goddess says that she can't remember about last night, about what happened after Jinta's arrival. Jinta didn't expect to hear something like that. Liafu thinks about what happened yesterday. Jinta tries to distract her and offers to just wash up. They go downstairs and have breakfast. Liafu says she decided to help him. Jinta doesn't understand what she's talking about. Liafu explains that she will help him on his adventure. She continues that besides, she doesn't know when she'll be able to get home, so she'll be under his supervision, and it's just not very fair. Jinta admits that he somehow didn't think about it somehow. But the girl was already thinking about it, and she tells him to just let her help him. The guy thinks a little and says that Liafu knows a lot more about this world, so he agrees. Liafu rejoices at his decision, and asks Jinta to give her a hand. Jinta hesitantly holds out her hand. Shaking Jinta's hand, Liafu says that from now on, they will be best friends. Jinta smiles and agrees with her. Already in the room, Jinta tells that he defeated the behemoth at night. Liafu is surprised that he was able to do it alone, and says he's joking. Tie your tie. Jinta says, Behemoth is strong enough. Liafu can't believe him, and says that even the meaningful Crescent Moon Alliance failed in hunting him, so it's not something that can be done alone. In response, Jinta says that he also knocked out his horn, and he gives the horn to Liafu. Liafu is surprised that this horn is so big, it's definitely a hippopotamus horn. It looks like Jinta was really able to defeat a hippopotamus alone. Liafu asks how he did it. Jinta replies that he used magic from that sword. Jinta continues to say that he just wanted to test magic on a random stone. Then there was an explosion, and that's it. Upon hearing this, Liafu clarifies, saying that he can use a sword. Jinta replies that it is. He can do it without any problems. This puzzles Liafu, and she says it's strange. Usually no one can pull a sword out of its scabbard, but Jinta did it. The guy says he was thinking about selling the horn and the rest of the monster drop. Liafu happily agrees. They reach the store where they sell things. The saleswoman is surprised to ask Jinta that he was able to defeat the behemoth, and was able to do it alone. She says it's hard to believe, but this horn and scales are direct evidence of that. The woman says she can't buy these things and they should contact a first guild. Jinta is surprised, and the woman says that if he reports the completion of the cross, they will reward him. Liafu says that was the way to kill a hippopotamus. The woman hands them a paper and says that she will give it to them. A report on the evaluation of materials. It will help with the report. The main characters thank her. After that, Liafu says that he needs to buy some clothes. Jinta is confused and asks why this is. Liafu replies that his clothes stink a lot. Jinta is embarrassed by this and sniffs. The woman offers him her help. After Jinta has changed his clothes, the woman notices that the new clothes look good on him. She goes on to say that it's like he's going to university, and these clothes really suit him. Uncertainly, Jinta asks Liafu what he looks like. This is the first time he wears something like this. He asks if he looks weird. Liafu did not expect such a question. The woman keeps saying that he looks great. Liafu smiles sheepishly. In Jinta's mind, Liafu laughs at him and says he still smells weird, and she thought it was because of the clothes. Jinta is still waiting for Liafu's reply. Liafu says uncertainly that he looks great, and blushes. Jinta blushes too, and thanks her. The main characters continue their conversation with the shopkeeper. At the same time, a man is watching them through the window. He turns to the others and tells them to look at them. It looks like the guy got a cool thing. The bandit points to Jinta's sword. Jinta increases her status by sitting by the fountain. Looking at the status of the sword, the guy reads it out loud. There are 2 more magical abilities. Behind Jinta, Liafu sits by the fountain with a displeased expression and says that everything is as she thought. She says that defeating a behemoth alone is an impossible task, but with such a status of a sword. She takes the sword, and Jinta sees the status. They're both surprised. After seeing this, Jinta says that it looks like what he got. Liafu replies that if Jinta takes this sword, he will get a big boost. Liafu is surprised. He thinks it's because of luck. Liafu is unhappy and says that ordinary luck will not affect such a strong weapon in any way, but only a broken luck limit could somehow affect it. Jinta asks in surprise what she means by that. Liafu confidently says that this is a bug again. Jinta says with displeasure that he still doesn't understand. Liafu gives the sword back to Jinta and says that she is not so lucky. The goddess asks what they will do next. Jinta looks at her questioningly. The girl says that she actually wanted to visit one place. The main characters came to the gacha point again. The girl behind the counter greets the heroes sweetly. Jinta is somehow disappointed and says that this is the best place. Liafu enthusiastically says that everything is fine, and she also wants to try it once. Jinta asks the girl if there is anything here that she liked. Liafu joyfully says that there is. Liafu enthusiastically points at something and says that this is it. Jinta asks that this is a house by the lake. Liafu joyfully says that it is. He is beautiful. Liafu says they can't live in a hotel. Jinta notices that this is a valuable prize. He won't get caught so easily. Liafu says they won't know if they don't try. Liafu looks at Jinta pleadingly and says that just once. Jinta gives in to her and says that she will go for once. And she takes out a bill, and Liafu is very happy about it. Jinta calls out to Liafu and says that it's worth hugging before trying. Liafu looks at him blankly. Jinta explains that he wants to help with luck. Liafu confusedly says that she doesn't want to because Jinta is thinking about something wrong. The girl complacently says that she does not need his abilities. She will show Jinta what the goddess is capable of. 10 minutes later, Liafu is crying and says she wants one more time. One more time, and it will definitely fall out. She's holding a pile of trash in her hands. Jinta doesn't quite tell her not to be stupid. This is the 10th attempt, and it's all complete garbage. Liafu wanted to say something, but Jinta says it's all garbage. In her hands, she held a dirty cloth, drawing sticks, and a dirty napkin. Jinta notices that she is not designed for such games. She just got excited. Liafu asks Jinta to give her another chance. Incredulously, Jinta tells her to let him do it next time. If she wants this house, then she must definitely give it a try. Liafu is unhappy and agrees with him. Seeing her expression, Jinta asks why she is unhappy now. Trying to calm her down, Jinta says that he understands that she wants to feel like a winner. Liafu makes excuses that this is not the case. She continues that if Jinto is the only one who wins, then in the future he will say that this is house, not hers. Liafu is unhappy and says that he would have said something like that. Jinta is shocked and says that he would not say such a thing. Jinta grabs her by the shoulders and says that he will never say such rude words, especially if he wins. Then they will both win. Liafu is embarrassed by such words. Liafu looks down in embarrassment and says it's okay. Jinta gets embarrassed too and thinks he told her that. The girl behind the counter says questioningly that she congratulates them. Even more embarrassed, Jinta says that she was mistaken and it's not what she thought. After looking at the guy more closely, the girl asks if he is the last winner. Jinta confirms this. The girl says that he is incredibly lucky. Jinta replies that you can say that, and that he was lucky for the first time. The girl sweetly says that he should try again. He needs to try while he's lucky, because he's aiming for a house on the shore. Jinta agrees. Jinta says that Liafu had tried to knock it out before, as you saw. Jinta holds out 1,000 rin and asks to try it once. The girl asks if he is sure. The girl, smiling sweetly, says that she recommends paying immediately for 10 attempts, because luck will not be able to accompany him so favorably all the time. Jinta confidently says that everything is fine and asks for one try. The girl unhappily wishes him good luck and says that she hopes for his victory. Just as displeased, Jinta says that he will certainly win. Liafu, standing behind, says that he is the best and that he can do it. Jinta nervously says that she should just hope for Rand. One of the girls at the counter says that if he wins again, then they won't have such prizes left. The other girl says it's okay, he can't do it again. Jinta takes out one plastic ball. The girls are watching him intently. After opening the balloon, Jinta gets a little lost and calls the tenant. And he asks for forgiveness and the bodices. He says that it seems he knocked out the wrong thing for them. He found a yellowish pebble. Liafu takes a closer look. She asks to see it and says it's a gold stone. Jinta can't believe it and says that he really won. The girls at the counter are nervous. Holding the stone, Jinta tells the employee that he has won. The female employee lost her speech. She faints, and the main characters approach her worriedly. The house on the lake shore has been received. Rumors spread quickly through the city. A joyful Jinto cannot believe that they will now live in a separate house. Liafu calls out to him and says that she has found a cart. The owner said that he can take them to the lake. The owner of the carriage, standing behind Liafu, waves to Jinta. Sitting in the cart, the owner says that Jinta is very lucky, because just yesterday this area was a very dangerous zone. This place was the haven of a dangerous hippopotamus. Jinta, as if he wasn't the one who defeated the behemoth, asks if there are any problems right now. The owner replies that there is not, and it is likely that some mysterious hero killed the beast under cover of night. Jinta makes a surprised face. Turning to Liafu, he asks if she heard what the owner said. But Liafu doesn't feel well. The guy is worried and asks if she's okay. Liafu admits that she doesn't feel well. With tears in her eyes, she repeats that she is not feeling well, and she says that the carriage is shaking very badly. Jinta says that they have been driving off the road for a long time. Suddenly, the horse gets scared of something and gets up on its hind legs. The cart is shaking, and the owner is very scared because of something. Jinta is worried and asks what happened. The owner of the cart stammers and does not know what to answer. Bandits have surrounded the carriage from all sides and are demanding that Jinta get out of the carriage. Jinta, a little nervous, comes out and asks the bandits what happened. One of the bandits with blonde hair steps forward a little. He says they saw that he won the lake house and they would like to celebrate it. Jinta incredulously thinks that these guys look like real bandits. The bandit demands that Jinta hand over the keys to the house, and he warns that if he does anything, he will become food for the fish of this lake. He demands that he hand over the heroic magic sword. Jinta looks at them calmly and says that's how they know about him, and grabs a sword. The bandit, smiling eerily, says that not only does he know about the sword, besides, he has already set his sights on this sword. He says that this sword will bring them enough money in the market, a lot of money. Jinta gets a little tense. One of the bandits drags Liafu by the hand and calls his boss. The blonde bandit turns to look at him. The bandit shows the ringleader a bodice and tells him to look at her. She is as beautiful as a doll. The leader smiles eerily and looks at Liafu with satisfaction. He says she's really beautiful, and she can have a lot of fun if she plays with her. He touches Lifa's face. The main bandit grabs Lifa by the chin and tells her to stop frowning, although she doesn't. He says he likes strong-willed women. Jinta thinks it would be better if he didn't bring his face so close. She strongly pointed it out after the trip. Lifa is dragged away by another bandit, and she asks them to stop shaking her. The main bandit turns to Jinta and says that he has decided everything. He has changed his plans. Now he wants to take everything. Jinta is shocked and asks that she even takes the house. The bandit, grinning, says that he will need a place. No one will bother him here. This is a good place. He tells him not to worry. They're just playing with his girlfriend for a bit. Jinta looks at him in silence. Jinta steps forward a bit and says that if necessary, he will take the matter seriously. The bandit laughs and tells Jinta not to embarrass himself. Smiling and confident, Jinta says that he should refuse. The bandit is unhappy with this and says it means they will take his life. Jinta is being attacked from all sides. Jinta grabs the hilt of his sword. Lifa is worried and calls Jinta. The bandits gloatingly say that he doesn't get strong if he has a magic sword, and he'll get scared anyway. The main bandit, grinning, says that in fact, it's a piece of trash that he can't even draw. Only a hero can draw a sword. The bandit doesn't finish as Jinta draws his sword. Jinta confidently pulls out a sword and grabs it with both hands. Magical smoke surrounds the blade of the sword. The bandits did not expect this and are surprised. Even Lifa didn't expect this. The hero says that the house and the elevator he's not going to give to people like them, and he swings his sword. With the help of sword magic, he cuts the ground under the bandits' feet. They fall off their feet from surprise and the force of the blow. After a few seconds, the bandits look around and see a huge crack in the ground. Horrified, the gang leader says that Jinta just cut the ground. Another bandit says it wasn't part of the deal. Jinta awkwardly thinks that he just had to cut everything around a little. But here, Jinta mockingly asks that someone wet his pants. He points his sword at the bandits. Out of fear, they quickly ran away, saying they were very sorry. Jinta was speechless. The guy looks around looking for a Bodis. When he finds her with his eyes, he says it's over. But Lifa is silent. Jinta is worried and calls her. Jinta looks at her carefully and sees that she is barely holding back tears. The hero asks what happened. A minute ago, she looked like she was about to fall, but now, Jinta sits down next to the girl and asks if she is scared. Lifa just nods. Jinta keeps asking that she thought she would be taken away, now she can stop crying. Lifa finally replies that she is not crying. Jinta says irritably that it was only after all that she was able to respond to this. Lifa stops crying and remembers the words Jinta said earlier, that he wouldn't give up his house or his clothes to people like these bandits. Remembering this, Lifa blushes. Jinta notices this and asks what happened. Lifa takes Jinta's hands and says that nothing happened and thanks him. Jinta doesn't understand anything and just believes her words. Getting up from the ground, the guy says that now they can continue on their way, and this time they will ask the owner to drive slower so that she doesn't get seasick so much. Lifa asks him not to remind her of this, and also gets up from the ground. After going deeper into the forest, Lifa says excitedly that there really is a house that is so deep in the forest. Leaning on the sides, Jinta says that the driver pointed out approximately this place. Lifa notices the house and happily informs Jinta and says that there is a lake nearby. Jinta also notices the house and is happy. They go inside the house. The house was beautiful and had spacious rooms. Lifa is very happy at home. Jinta looks at her and asks if she likes the house. Lifa says she really likes it, and she always wanted to live in a house like this. Looking through the window of the bodice, admires the clean forest air. Sticking his head out through the window of the bodice, he tells the guy to look at these views. But Lifa sees something, and the joy leaves her face. Jinta is also looking out the window. Looking at this, Jinta says that it's not every day that you can admire it. The main characters are closely watched by a dragon. Jinta says that such things simply don't happen in Japan. Besides, they were given a dragon in addition to the house. Lifa says that the dragon is not a pet. The dragon roars at Lifa. Lifa falls down from fear, and with tears in her eyes, she asks Jinta to do something faster. Jinta is unhappy and agrees. Jumping over the window, he said, was a good idea in principle. But that was it. The dragon is level 16, even though it is a hatchling. Jinta's got a little bit more. The guy thinks he can probably do something. Liafu wonders what the guy's level is. Jinta replies that he has an 18th. Liafu is surprised by this fact. Liafu remembers that Jinta defeated Behemoth, and he was able to gain level 18 a day after reincarnation. Jinta draws his sword from its scabbard. He says he doesn't want to take power, but if he doesn't do anything, he'll probably eat them. The dragon carefully looks at the magic of the sword. Jinta seriously says that he won't take pity on him if he does. But Jinta doesn't finish as the dragon obediently bows its head. Jinta didn't expect this and makes a surprise sound. The dragon lies obediently on the ground and makes noises. Jinta gets lost and says that's the pose. The dragon makes a sound again. Jinta is shocked and says he doesn't speak dragon. Jinta doesn't notice any hostility when she looks into the dragon's eyes. The guy doesn't understand what that could mean. Liafu calls out to the guy. Jinta turns to look at her. Liafu asks if he has already lost. Jinta is offended by these words and says what it means. Sheathing his sword, he says, "She just hid on the second floor." Liafu asks what happened. It was very quiet. Jinta is a little wrinkled. Jinta asks Liafu to come downstairs and take a look. Liafu looks at him questioningly. After going downstairs, Liafu is surprised that the dragon is so cool. After looking at the dragon carefully, Liafu says that this is the dragon's position when he swears to the master. Jinta looks at her questioningly. Liafu says that he is completely lying on the ground, and she asks how it happened. Jinta is upset and says that he himself does not know how it happened. Liafu suggests that maybe he confused him with his mother after seeing his abilities. The fire was similar to a dragon. Jinta says uncertainly that he doesn't think so, and it's kind of stupid. Jinta squats down and says that if you think about it, what is a baby dragon doing here? The dragon squints and makes a sound. Liafu watches them in silence, and he asks what they need to do with this dragon. Liafu notices that he looks harmless. Jinta agrees with her. Liafu happily says that he looks very cute. Jinta agrees with her with a stretch. The goddess playfully asks what's next. Well, yes, she wanted to keep him. Jinta hesitantly says that maybe everything will be fine and let him become part of the family. Liafu happily asks what he really allows. The girl runs up to the dragon and hugs him. She says that if that's what he wants to do, then that's fine with her. Liafu tells the dragon that it's nice to meet you, but the dragon pushes her away. Jinta says they need to get the house in order and then they can start the journey. The dragon makes a cheerful sound. Jinta begins her great adventure. Early in the morning, Jinta looks at the other side of the bed in shock. On the other side of the bed, Liafu is sleeping peacefully. Jinta confusedly says that why is he in the same bed with Liafu? Jinta needs to remember what happened yesterday. Jinta remembers that after they swept the whole house and explored the surrounding forest with the dragon, night fell. Jinta and Liafu enter the room and feel awkward. Jinta is displeased to notice that there is only one bed in his room. Liafu awkwardly agrees with him. There was one double bed in the room. Jinta turns away and says that in this case he will lie down on the sofa in the living room, and Liafu will get the bedroom. Liafu tries to stop the guy, and she says, a little shyly, that the bed is big enough, so she's sure they can fit comfortably on it. Jinta is shocked by this suggestion, and he thinks that two people are in the same bed. Liafu is very embarrassed and looks down. Jinta thinks that they're really going to sleep in the same bed. In Jinta's mind, Liafu says that she will make him take responsibility for what he has done. Jinta silently looks at Liafu and doesn't know what to say to her. Before going to bed, Jinta calls Liafu. But in reality, Jinta is unhappy lying on the bed, and he thinks that the girl fell asleep almost instantly. Liafu is sleeping very soundly on the other side of the bed. After a while, Jinta's mind slowly sank into darkness. Before going to sleep, tears gather in the corners of Jinta's eyes. The next day, Jinta, sitting on the bed, says that Liafu is playing with a pure male heart. Liafu is sleeping peacefully next to him, but she makes a sound in response. Liafu slowly wakes up, and when she wakes up, she rubs her eyes. Jinta notices that Liafu is awake. After waiting for Liafu for a while, she says that she is dying of hunger. Jinta looks at her in silence. A little later, Jinta brings some fruit. Seeing this, Liafu rejoices and says that the floor is onango and asks where he found them. The girl asks if she can eat them. Jinta says that, of course, he can eat them. Jinta says that Of course, he can eat them, and he found them in the forest yesterday. Jinta says contentedly that He-chan seemed to find them delicious, so he took a couple himself. Liafu looks at the guy questioningly, and he asks who He-chan is. Jinta explains that He-chan is that baby dragon. Since she is a fire dragon, he decided to name her He-chan. She is Japanese for fire. While having breakfast, Liafu says that this name is just terrible. Ignoring her, Jinta says what about the plans for today? He would like to return back to the city of Kokin for a while. Liafu enthusiastically asks if he wants to try his luck with gacha. She can't wait to go. Jinta sternly replies that this is not the case. Jinta explains that, with all these events with the house, it so happened that they forgot that they needed to provide their report. Liafu incomprehensibly asks what kind of report it is, and remembers that the report is for killing a hippopotamus. The girl asks that in that case they need to go to the guild. Jinta replies that she is saying exactly the right thing. Leaving the house, Liafu says that they need to move out as soon as possible. They went to karate last time, but they will have to walk half a day to the city. Jinta reacts with displeasure when she hears about half a day. The dragon, seeing Jinta, purrs. The guy turns his head towards He-chan and looks at her questioningly. He-chan points his tail at his back. Jinta asks what he wants to say, that he can take them. He-chan purrs affirmatively. Jinta and Liafu are happy about this. And climbing on the dragon's back, Jinta says that it's cool. They'll fly to the city on the dragon's back in no time. The guy helps Liafu up. Liafu thanks the dragon. Riding a dragon, Jinta happily says that they are flying to Kokin. He-chan is happily purring, but Jinta notices that they didn't take off, and he asks in surprise that he can't fly. He-chan runs fast. Liafu notices that they're cutting down a lot of time anyway. Liafu explains that He-chan is still young, and she will be able to learn the flying skill when she grows up a bit. Jinta listens to her carefully and says that he understands, and he hopes that they will be able to see her flying. Jinta says if she's too pale, if she's okay. Pale Boda stammers that she's fine, it's just that Anango climbs out of her back. That's all. Jinta is worried that she should be patient a little longer. They are almost at the gate. There are 2 guards at the gate. When they hear the sounds, they turn around. Jinta says they would like to go to the city. The guards look back and see the dragon. They get scared. Looking down, they see Jinta, and he asks if they can come into the city for a while. Shaking with fear, the guard stammers that they are not allowed. Looking at He-chan, Jinta says that they probably can't come in because of He-chan. The dragon looks at the guy pitifully. Jinta said he was sorry and asked her to wait for them here for a while. The guards are shocked to see how the dragon understands him. Jinta keeps telling her to behave herself until they get back and gives her Anango. He-chan purrs affirmatively. The guards are surprised to ask how he can control a dragon. Jinta says that's not the case at all, but she really listens to most of the things he tells her. The guard, in a misunderstanding, said that a dragon that obeys human orders cannot be like that. Looking at the dragon doubtfully, the guard asks if they can understand human language at all, and judging by her size, she's probably still quite small. He-chan looks at this guard with displeasure. The guard explains that she doesn't look like she's very smart. Upon hearing this, He-chan knocks down the guard's helmet with his fire. The guard screams in surprise. It seems that He-chan was hurt by his words. Already in the city, Liafu explains that dragons are Class A monsters, so it is generally assumed that they are the true enemies of humanity. Jinta now understands why the guards were so shocked. Liafu says that they came and dragged one of these dragons right in front of their door. Even a tiny oversight would have put the city in a panic. The girl mockingly remarks that Jinta was just trying to show off. She says Jinta is acting like a child. Ignoring her remark, Jinta asks where exactly the guild is located. He pinches her cheek and Liafu tries to say something, but nothing is clear. Jinta says that he didn't understand anything and stops pulling her cheek. Looking at the streets, Liafu happily says that the guild is right at the bottom of the street, right next to the gacha item hall. Jinta incredulously asks about the gacha items. Liafu, almost glowing, says that the guild is next to the gacha item. Liafu asks, a little embarrassed, is something wrong? Jinta turns away and says that everything is fine. Jinta confidently says that while they are here, they can visit that hall. Liafu happily says that in any case, she doesn't mind. The main characters stand in front of the gacha hall and look at the list. Jinta says it definitely looks like the winnings aren't that good this time, and it's probably his fault, but still. Jinta, a little annoyed, says that if that's the case, then they shouldn't go there. But Jinta hears a sob. The sobs don't subside, and Jinta doesn't feel comfortable. He turns to Liafu and asks her not to start crying. Jinta starts quickly saying that he will let her play once, just to make her stop crying. Liafu confusedly says that it wasn't she who was crying. Someone is sobbing. Jinta and Liafu look away and see a little girl crying in front of the entrance to the gacha hall. Looking at her, Jinta asks why such a little girl is leaving the game room. Liafu tells him that they won't know if they don't ask the girl. Liafu walks over to the girl and squats down. The girl introduces herself and politely asks the girl what her name is. The little girl calms down a bit and says her name is Aruli. Liafu asks her why she is crying. Aruli-chan doesn't say anything. Crying, Aruli says that there is one prize that she wants to get, no matter what. But she just can't win it, and she shows a bunch of trash. Liafu starts crying and hugging too. She says that all her hard-earned money was wasted. It must be so hard. Jinta watches them from the sidelines and feels awkward. Jinta comes closer and asks what is the prize she wants so badly. Aruli wipes her tears and looks at the guy. Having calmed down a bit, Aruli points to the prize she wants. Jinta sees Ochi's mighty bow and is a little puzzled. Jinta looks at Aruli and asks that it is a gift for someone. Liafu replies that no, it's not a gift. The girl explains that this bow belonged to her father. Liafu is embarrassed. She asks if she came here with her father. Aruli says that her father was killed by a hippopotamus. The main characters did not expect this. Jinta, after a short silence, says that it's like a memory of him. He thinks it happened long before he came to this world. He found out that Aruli's father had fought Behemoth with this particular bow, and he had lost. And at some point, the fallen bow was found by an ordinary passerby, changing owners hundreds of times. Eventually, it ended up in the possession of this hall. Aruli cries and says that she's been searching for so long and finally she was able to find him. Liafu calms her down and tells her not to worry. Aruli looks at her questioningly. Liafu says that Jinta's big brother will get this bow for her, the size of the first bow. Aruli can't believe what she's heard. Jinta replies that there is no need to give people hope that if he cannot win. Aruli sarcastically says that Jinta really wants to say that he will not be able to win. Liafu and Aruli look at the guy pleadingly. Seeing their gaze, Jinta cannot refuse them, and says that it can be considered that it has already been won. Jinta enters the hall, followed by Liafu and Aruli. They are greeted good-naturedly by the employee of the hall and says that he also came today. Jinta says he came for the grand prize today. Liafu, who came in after Jinta, comes forward and loudly says that the golden core is the rarest, behind the mighty Yuchi bow. This is her revenge for yesterday. Jinta did not expect this and silently watches Liafu. He thinks that Liafu is really going to do this. So, after a while, Liafu loses. She was only able to win a used cup, a wet dishcloth, and she gets dandelion fluff 6 times. Jinta is surprised that a man can get so much fluff. Liafu says resentfully that this gacha is definitely broken. Jinta asks her to stop making strange accusations. Jinta says that everything is fine. This time, he will try. But Liafu refuses this and says loudly that there is one more capsule left. And she opens the capsule. A stone falls out of it. With tears in his eyes, he says that she won 2,000 rings for lunch. This is the first real prize. She happily holds the money, and she rushes to hug Jinta and says that she did it. Aruli says that the bonus is simply amazing. Jinta is embarrassed and says with displeasure that this is not at all what they need to get, and he tells Aruli not to give in to her mood. Liafu happily says that they will go and have a delicious meal. Jinta is shocked. Liafu and Aruli leave. Jinta says with displeasure that they abandoned him, but Aruli sweetly asks Jinto to do his best. And Liafu also sweetly tells Jinto to hold on. The guy smiles and tells them to leave it to him. Liafu and Aruli calmly leave the hall. After they leave, Jinta wonders what to do now. He looks at the gacha machine and thinks that he will just win quickly and catch up with them. The employee sweetly tells him to come through. Jinta sees a gacha vending machine and thinks that this machine is huge. Jinta awkwardly admits that he would like to play on a normal slot machine. The girl says that this is a normal automaton. But Jinta notices that this one is definitely bigger than the one next to it. The girls behind the counter look at each other and agree. Jinta confusedly says that he's talking about a machine gun. Jinta says suspiciously that this thing is definitely full of trash, and he asks if it's even legal. The employee says that this is a new special measure that had to be taken because of some customers who tried to cheat. Jinta excitedly asks what they are saying about him. The employee whispers to her partner that this is the part where he will give up and go home. Her partner says she feels a little guilty. Jinta has been thinking about what to do all this time, and he says that everything is clear. After that, he confidently says that since that's the case, he agrees. The employee did not expect such an answer, and she stammers that he's definitely going to play on this huge slot machine. Jinta is confident in his decision and asks that it is still worth 1,000 rins. Another girl tries to dissuade the guy and says that there are more than 5,000 bad capsules in this car. Jinta says there are some capsules standing there anyway. The girls reply that it is. Jinta, confidently and completely without fear, says that in this case he will play, because this time he has a reason why he cannot back down. The employee says she has a bad feeling about this. Somewhere in the city, Lifa and Aruli are sitting near a fountain and quietly eating ice cream. Aruli asks Lifa if Jinta is okay now. Lifa confidently and calmly says that everything is fine with him. If he is good at something, it is his luck. There are some strange sounds coming from the hall. Aruli looks at it with concern, and Lifa calmly says that it looks like Jinta is done. Jinta comes out of the gacha hall, and Aruli and Lifa run up to him. Aruli happily calls the guy, and Lifa asks how everything went. Jinta raises her head, and he tells them that he's probably not welcome there anymore. In the gacha hall, the employee and the owner of this hall are disappointed to say that they spent too much time collecting this garbage. Lifa asks worriedly what he did at all, but Lifa quickly changes the subject and asks about the bow. The girl says he won it. Jinta says she almost forgot about it and hands the bow to the girl and says, "Here's her bow." Aruli looks at the bow in surprise and in silence. Jinta asks if it's that bow or not. Aruli holds the bow carefully. She cries happily and says that this is the onion. Squatting in front of the girl, Lifa asks what is not wonderful. Aruli just nods. She happily thanks Jinta and Lifa for their help. The main characters say goodbye to Aruli at the gates of the city. Jinta, puzzled, asks Lifa how Aruli will get home alone with all these goblins. Lifa says she's an elf after all. Jinta looks at her questioningly. Lifa explains to him, saying that elves are excellent magic casters. They're also good with a bow. Even a little girl like her will be strong. Jinta doesn't know what to say. Lifa reminds them that Hichan is waiting for them, so they need to hurry up. Jinta remembers it too and agrees with her, and they stand silently in the middle of the street. And Jinta, angry, says that he would have said so if they had reached the guild as planned. There are a lot of people in the Adventurers Guild. The employee thanks someone for waiting. She holds out the card and says it's their guild membership card. The employee's name is Carla Milan. The girl tells him to be careful and never lose his ID. Jinta happily takes the ID. Carla looks at Lifa and asks Jinta that his partner will not register. Lifa looks at her and looks at her questioningly. Then she says she doesn't need it. Jinta looks at her carefully. Lifa confidently says that she is a goddess after all. Carla smiles demurely. Jinta notices that she is as professional as possible. Carla continues to say that as for the authenticity of the completed task, she hopes that they will be able to prove the fact of the behemoth's murder. Carla asks that they are representatives of their group. Jinta is surprised and asks what kind of band she is talking about. Carla and Jinta are surprised. After a few seconds, Carla says loudly that they did it on their own. Carla, in complete shock, says that this is absurd, because this task is intended for rank B. At least for successful operations, there should be at least 4 in the group. Jinta calmly says that these are the things he knocked off the behemoth, and he hands the employee a hippopotamus horn. The girl chokes on air and looks at the guy in surprise. She holds a horn in her hands and looks at the horn in surprise. She says it can't be. It's a real hippopotamus horn. It's some kind of mistake. Jinta hands the paper to the girl, which proved that she had completed the task, and Carla sees Madame Len's signature. Carla says there could be no mistake. Madame Lin's never made mistakes. Jinta thinks that the saleswoman has a good reputation. Carla asks in surprise how one person could defeat a behemoth in this. Jinta asks that this is enough to get a reward. Carla says that this will be enough, and the reward will be paid. A cat passes by the bodice. She's petting the cat. Carla says there is one thing, but Jinta looks at her questioningly. Carla says that killing a behemoth is not a guild-sponsored quest, so the reward should not be mediocre from a client. In this case, a certain Mr. Vague Lviv. Jinta asks what it means they can't get a reward in the guild. Liafu looks at Carla questioningly. Liafu wanted to ask Carla something, but Liafu is pushed by men and she falls. The men approach Jinta. One of them invites Jinta to join his group, but the second man pushes him away and tells Jinta to join his group. The third one asks the guy for an autograph. Jinta notices the girls on the side. They approach Jinta and grab his hand. They ask the guy that he will choose them, not the bad-smelling guys. Jinta smiles sheepishly and looks at the girls contentedly. Jinta doesn't know what to do and says it sounds pretty tempting. The girls happily ask if he wants to walk with them to the nearest dungeon. Jinta confusedly says that he doesn't know. Liafu looks at them in silence and somehow sadly. It offends her a little. Liafu gets up from the floor and grabs Jinta's hand. She takes Jinta away and says they have to go. Jinta is surprised by her decision and says that they also need to ask something about the client. Liafu confidently says that everything is fine and she knows about him. She says that the House of Lions is quite a famous family of elves. They live in the forest in the north. She adds that he's acting like a fool right now. Jinta doesn't say anything, and feeling awkward, he asks what's wrong as she has a headache or something similar. Liafu turns around with displeasure and says that there is nothing wrong with his head. Besides, she's never had any problems with her head. Jinta awkwardly says it's fun. The adventurers look on in silence, flying on a dragon and heading to the village of elves. Together with Liafu, the main character asks her what she is angry about this time. She tells him that he misunderstood her and she's not mad at all. The guy doesn't believe it. And then, looking ahead, he notices someone, and she asks if it's Ellie. He wants to fly closer to her and examine her face more closely to verify his assumption. But the girl is scared of an evil dragon heading straight for her. Ellie starts running away as soon as she sees him. The main character asks he to stop, and the dragon immediately stops so as not to hit the girl, but she falls to the ground in fright. The guy and the girl sitting on the dragon land. The main character immediately apologizes to Ellie and notices that they must have scared her very much. But the girl apparently recognized them, calling them brother and sister. And then she says it's so cool to travel on a dragon, and she even envies them. The guy is happy with her praise, so he thanks her. Then he asks the girl if she lives here, to which Ellie replies that everything is exactly like that, and her village is located in that forest. The main character begins to reflect on what the girl said, while the guy's companion hugs Ellie tightly. Jinta asks the girl if she happens to know Vague Lviv, because they have business with him. Ellie nods her head affirmatively, and says that this is the headman of their village, and she can take them to him, because she knows a shortcut. Some time later, when they had already reached the village of the Lviv family, the main character looks around and notices that everything in this place looks very cool, beautiful nature. The guy thanks Ellie for spending time with him because they save time, and at the same time he starts stroking her head. The girl continues and says that the headman lives in a house with a red roof, which makes everything clear to Jinta. And then Ellie said that it was time for her to go home because she wanted to show her mother the onion as soon as possible. And then the girl suddenly runs up to the guy and asks him to lean closer to her, because from such a distance she will not be able to reach him and will not be able to tell him anything. The guy, without thinking twice, squats down and gets closer to Ellie. She begins to whisper words of gratitude in his ear because he gave her her father's bow. After that, the girl kisses him on the cheek as a sign of gratitude. She turns around and finally says goodbye to them, walking away from them in a completely opposite direction and humming something to herself. The main character froze for a few seconds in disbelief, and the girl watching all this said that he was guilty, but Jinta did not understand what he had done to be guilty. Meanwhile, the dragon went back to sleep. Some time later, when they arrived at the headman's house, they were politely greeted. His daughter. Introducing herself as Quina, she bowed to her guests and warned them that her father would be coming soon, and asked them to wait for him here. While the headman's daughter turned away from them and went about her business, His companion notices that she is quite cute. The guy agrees with her and says that her forms are also quite lush. It's annoying for the girl sitting next to him, and Kuina turns to them with tea in her hands and asks if they need more milk. Jinta says he needs milk and more, and the headman's daughter immediately pours milk into his tea to make it taste better. And then she asks if he is really an adventurer. The main character says that she noticed everything correctly and he would like to report on his completed quest. Kuina says that this is it. Just like Jinta was the one who completed the quest, and then everything is fine. Meanwhile, the guy and the girl look at each other and don't understand what she's talking about. Suddenly, the village headman comes in, greeting the guests and also asking them to apologize for being late and for making them wait. He sits down on the sofa opposite the main character and says that he is pleased to meet them because he is the head of this village, and his name is Vague Lviv. He asks the protagonist if Mr. Jinta is really in front of him now, and then says that they have already received a report from the guild about his completed quest. Answering the headman's question, the guy says that's exactly what it is. And without thinking twice, the headman suggests Jinta to immediately talk about the reward. This makes the guy a little nervous, but he immediately calls Kuina, and she immediately understands what she will need to do. And the girl sitting next to the guy is wondering what they will be given as a reward, whether it could be an expensive mansion or gold. The headman interrupts her train of thought and says that the destruction of Bahamut was a very long-standing desire of their family. Therefore, he decided that the one who would complete this task, he will give away what is dear to him more than anything in the world. And this is his most beloved daughter. Both characters sitting on the couch are shocked after hearing what they can't believe, and the girl asks if the reward is really his daughter. The headman tells her that's exactly what it is. Jinta apologizes and asks if he misheard by accident, and if he understood everything correctly. The headman tells him that everything is correct and asks to take his daughter. After all, Kina is a very good girl, and for an adventurer's bride, she has a good education. The main character does not understand what kind of bride this is, and then Kuina herself intervenes in the conversation and says that she owns a bow and wind magic, and she will do anything to help her master. Although there is nothing special about her, she hopes that she can be useful to him, and this is a new gift that Lady Luck has brought them. The headman began to tell the main character and the girl that a long time ago, the family of lions faced this monster that devastated their hometown. However, they were completely powerless and lost many of their comrades, friends, and family members, including Ellie's father, who brought them to him. And eventually, they ran away and settled here. Gritting his teeth, he continued to say that this was why he had decided that if ever there would be a hero who would kill Bahamut, then he would marry his daughter, his blood, to him. He stated this with all seriousness and very confidently. The girl sitting next to Jinta does not understand why he decided this. She does not quite understand his stream of thoughts. The man explains to them that they had already suffered a crushing defeat once, after which it was very difficult for all of them to recover. But they had to do something to prevent this tragedy from happening again. Therefore, they rely on the main character. While saying all this, he points at the guy with his finger, as if exerting psychological pressure on him, and this is what leads the guy into a stupor. The headman continues and says that a great adventurer like Mr. Jinta, who is able to defeat Bahamut and his genes, will undoubtedly make their family stronger. In his mind, he had already imagined a happy picture of a family together with his daughter, the hero. The girl sitting next to the guy is trying to make sense of everything the headman said earlier, and does not understand what kind of genes he is talking about. Jinta also tries to make sense of everything the man said earlier, and then says that even though the headman says so, he doesn't understand why the man thinks that Kuina herself agrees to this. The headman, looking at his daughter's expression, replied that she didn't seem to mind at all, so he didn't see any problems with it. Blushing, after saying these words, she asks him not to embarrass her even more. And the guy is perplexed. The headman reassures Jinta that no one is telling him about the immediate wedding, and just an ordinary engagement will be enough for them. And to begin with, Jinta asks the guy how he likes the idea of taking his daughter to his party. But Jinta does not understand what kind of stranglehold he has, because they don't even ask his opinion about the whole situation. After reflecting for a while, he confidently stated that he did not care about the further circumstances, and he fully agreed to these conditions. The girl is surprised by his statement, and the headman is only overjoyed at his unwavering determination. and then asks him to take care of his family and his beloved daughter. Jinta asks to leave this matter to him and not worry about further events. The girl who came here with him does not look happy after the statement. The hero, Kina, and the girl are walking together in the forest. The man's daughter is clinging tightly to the guy's hand. Jinta is a little embarrassed by this, so he calls out to Quina, to which the girl responds to him so that he addresses her more informally. They don't notice the girl, and kinda tells him that everything is fine, because she is his future wife, and there is nothing special about them holding hands, but still asks him to drop the formalities. The girl walking next to them is wondering under her breath if Kana is really going to marry him and does not believe what is happening. And then he says openly that they wanted to get something good, for example, a reward, but in the end, they were pushed off by some useless girl. The headman's daughter is shocked by her words. Laughing awkwardly, she asks the girl who she is to Mr. Jinta. The girl doesn't understand if she really asked her this question. And then, thinking a little, he wants to answer her question. Who are they to each other with the main character? But Jinta interrupts her and says that she is his mother. The headman's daughter is surprised by this discovery and asks if she is really her mother-in-law now. The girl is shocked by the words he said, but Kana tells her that it doesn't matter who she is to a guy, whether she is his mother, lover, or a hot water bottle in bed. She is sure that the gentleman will choose her, grinning at what she has said. The girl tells her that she seems to care about him. The guy asks them to stop, and then asks them since when they decide everything for him. The headman's daughter says that it's true. The hero should take the initiative. But that's not exactly what he meant, and he already understands that this trip is going to be a lot of fun. They are about to move on, but the girl suddenly stops abruptly. Two travelers turn to look at her, and Jinta asks if she really dislikes the headman's daughter that much. She tells him that it's not that at all, and she's still very happy that the guy got such a beautiful bride like Kana. They both don't understand what the girl is driving at. The headman's daughter asks the hero what he's going to do next. He tells her that he was going to take a quest in the city of Laguro. It's close, so he suggests they pick up he first so they can go further and walk. After they've already picked up he, they move on. Some time later, the city of Laguro. Travelers are surprised that this city is much bigger than Kokine. The guy calls out to Lifa and wants to tell her something important, but he is interrupted by the rumbling of his stomach. He explains to the girls that he hasn't eaten anything since morning except for panigo. Lifa asks if he's hungry by any chance, and kinda suggests that they go and feed Mr. Jinta. Kana looks away and says that she seems to have noticed a good seafood restaurant nearby. Lifa, walking on the other side, also looks around and notices that she seems to have noticed a popular restaurant with meat dishes. Kana asks why she doesn't go and eat this meat alone, and maybe something will grow. Lifa replied to the headman's daughter that now she understood why she had such dead eyes, because what a person eats is her reflection of him. And then, both girls suddenly turn to the main character, addressing him. The guy realizes that they want something from him, and he says he doesn't mind eating meat. Therefore, she asks Lifa to take them to the right place, and when she hears this, the girl is delighted. And with great enthusiasm, he asks to rely on her and leave it to her. She asks them to follow her because she knows how to feed a man. And Jinta asks her not to get upset because they will go to a seafood restaurant next time. But the girl is not at all upset by this. She has a sly smile on her face. The headman's daughter asks the guy to say A so she can feed him, but he tries to stop her, saying that he can eat himself, but still the girl insists on her own and her plan succeeds. She asks if the food doesn't taste better this way, which is quite annoying for the main character, so he tells her that who knows and asks her to continue eating normally. Lifa just watches it in silence, and Jinta is surprised that the girl is silent and this is such an unusual sight. And then suddenly Kaina calls out the guy's name, and she says that it seems to her that Lifa wants the guy to feed her himself. The guy didn't expect this at all, because he couldn't have guessed it himself before. Lifa herself is very impressed by this, and she is embarrassed, starting to deny it all, and then she says, why would she even want something like this? And yet, she diligently opens her mouth when the guy brings a fork with meat to her mouth and she happily starts chewing it. And the main character asks how the meat tastes. Lifa is only embarrassed by this question and says that she doesn't even know, and it's probably better to eat everything herself. Jinta then turns to Kana and sees her pleased face, and he asks why she is so happy, to which the girl replies that it was very nice. After all, Liafu averts her eyes, and her cheeks are flushed. Liafu is not thrilled about this, and she asks to stop watching her, because it bothers her. Leaning closer to the girl, Kana says that even though she only met her today, but she already understood the whole situation. And then she asks Mr. Jinta not to worry about her and Bodis, because she thinks they will become friends. The guy understands that she has probably already studied her, so this does not surprise him. He thinks to himself that Quina is psychologically much more mature. After Liafu finished her meat, she said that she also knew something. This is because elves live longer than humans and grow more slowly. Although Quina looks young, she is actually, but she couldn't say the last part of the sentence, because she saw the terrifying expression on the elder's daughter's face. She asked what the girl wanted to say. Liafu was afraid to move because of the surrounding aura around Quina, and she said it wasn't important at all. But the hero, sitting silently and just watching what was happening, realized that the first mine had been found. Being in the Adventurers Guild, the guy is told that Kazami still has the lowest rank of adventurers, and it is G, and the girl doubts that there will be suitable quests. After looking at the information sheet more closely, Jinta noticed that there really wasn't anything interesting here, and he asked if killing Bahamut wasn't considered an achievement. Anna, the secretary of the Adventurers Guild of Logoro City, replies to him that he understood everything correctly, but the rules state that you need to complete at least 10 quests to increase your rank. Jinta asks if there are any quests in which you can fight. After searching a bit, the girl tells him that there is a request from the Merchant Guild somewhere, and it seems that goblins have been greatly interfering with the transportation of goods lately. The guy looks at the piece of paper that the girl put in front of him and says that this is already quite interesting. It says that a purge of goblins will be needed. Jinta sees an item that requires 2 or more adventurers. Then Kaina says that she will register as an adventurer. The guy asks if she really does not mind this. She explains to him that for him, she can be anyone, both a bride and an adventurer. The main character is happy with her attitude and hopes that they will work together. Then he calls her sister. The girl tells him that she also hopes for their well-coordinated work and calls him brother. Liafu looks at all this with indignation, and it only disgusts her. Noticing the girl, Jinta says that this time, it seems, he really overdid it. But Kana tells him that everything is fine and she doesn't mind at all, and that she would register right away and let Liafu rest since they were going on a quest together. This starts to anger the girl, so she stops them and says that she also wants to become an adventurer. After this news, Kana asks if they have already accepted the quest together. The guy tells her that it is. He took it for 3. And then, turning to Liafu, he says that, in principle, it was possible for her not to register. But the girl tells him that she doesn't want him to be alone with Kana. The headman's daughter intervenes in their conversation and says that she doesn't mind at all, but she's not sure if Liafu can handle it. Then she goes up to her and asks if she knows how to fight, because this is not a child's game. Jinta also approaches the girl and asks if her goddess power has recovered yet. Liafu tells him no. This upsets the girl a little, and the guy calms Kane down, saying that the task is not so difficult. Then the girl agrees with him, and then she says that the main character is so kind to Liafu, but that's not exactly what the guy meant. Then Kaina says it's time for them to get ready. Jinta asks if they're not ready already. The girl tells him that it's not quite right, and they need to find a weapon if something unexpected happens. Sometime later, Kaina led them to a place, saying that she could become stronger here, although in truth, she was here for the first time. Entering this room, the guy notices a lottery in front of him, and this does not delight him. Kaina comes closer to the cash register, and pointing to the banner says that this is their goal. She continues and says that this is the perfect item for a bodice that doesn't know how to do anything, and the banner itself depicts a golden core. Liafu says that everything is fine in words, but the girl does not think that it is quite difficult to get it. Happy Kaina says that here she can get such a thing absolutely for free, and is glad that there are similar shops in the world. And she reminds the guy of someone. And then Liafu says that apparently she doesn't know anything about this harsh world and the headman's daughter is just a naive girl, because these are serious things. Kaina does not understand what is being said. Liafu explains to her that since she has not heard of anything, it is called gacha. This is exactly what breaks people's destinies. Jinta realizes to herself that it was the cry of the soul of a failed loser, and Kaina is just wondering if it's true that someone is just unlucky. This makes Liafu very angry. And Jinta says that actually Liafu's luck lies in the fact that as soon as she goes out into the field, she immediately steps into the manure. The girl asks him to be quiet. And then he comes up to Kaina and says that in that case, they will now decide which of them is better. The girl accepts her challenge. They turn to the guy, but he tells them to figure it out for themselves. And the confident Kaina tells them that soon she will turn this money into a mountain of treasure. They just watch in silence. The headman's daughter came up to the cashier, but she did not understand what she needed to say. Then Liafu came up to them, and she explained to her that she had to pay the clerk first, and only then will it be necessary to pull the lever. The lower Kaina says that now she understands everything and thanks the girl, and Jinta only wishes her good luck. Some time later, Kaina approaches the main character. Calling out by name, he asks what happened. The upset girl tells him that she couldn't win the baton, and all she has are some items. But the guy tells her that she has won a rare item and everything is not so bad. The girl asks if this is really so. And then Jinta tells her that at least not everything here is trash, and compared to Liafu, she is a real child of fortune. Then the headman's daughter asks if she really is that unlucky. He tells her to wait, because she'll see for herself soon. They didn't have to wait long. They turned to the girl, and they saw that she was sitting with a cursed doll in her hands. Liafu only asked to save her. Kaina doesn't understand what kind of hellish luck this is, and hasn't her luck gone into negative territory. Liafu tells them that if she does not give this doll back within 7 days, she will be cursed. None of those present are happy about this. Kane is shocked by what is happening, and the guy just asks not to approach him, because he does not need this doll. After dinner in Lagoro Town, all three of them agree that the food was delicious. The guy says that it's late. Liafu interrupts him and says that you can visit the guild tomorrow. So he suggests they find a hotel. Sometime later, sitting on the beds, Jinta apologizes to them, as the hotel had only one room. Kaina says there's nothing wrong with that, and besides, they'll save money on it. Liafu, in turn, says that everything will be fine, as long as the guy doesn't behave vulgarly. And then she sees the headman's daughter approaching the guy and is already on his bed. Liafu asks what she is doing, but Kaina explains that her mattress is a little dusty, and now she will sleep with Mr. Jinta. And then Liafu pulls her away and says that she will sleep with her. But Kaina only says that it is very cruel to the newlyweds. The girl can't believe that she was going to do it right here. She means that she doesn't quite understand when they manage to become an official couple, and then asks Kaina what she would do if Bahama was defeated by a woman. After these words, she abruptly throws Liafu onto the bed and begins to unbutton her shirt and pull down her pants, and then answers her question, and this is exactly what she began to do. Stroking her stomach, Kaina asks if the girl wants to know what it's like to be with a guy. But Liafu is not thrilled, and she just starts asking for help. But Jinta pretends not to hear anything and says that he will go check on He. The girl does not understand why he needs to do this right now. Leaving the room, Kaina tells the girl not to twitch, otherwise she will tear them. But Liafu just starts screaming loudly. Then she pressed herself against the wall after slapping Kaina. But the girl was just joking and didn't mean anything bad. Two girls are standing near the phone. One of them asks if it's really Gacha the Vandal. Holding a piece of paper in her hands, the girl asks if this is really his portrait. The second one tells her that it was sent to them this morning, and they need to be on their guard. The girl starts reading the information from the piece of paper, and it says that this is a young man with black hair and black eyes. He pays no more than 1,000 rin and wins a big prize every time. But it just makes her laugh, and she says that this does not happen. And most likely, this is just another urban legend. But they are distracted by a customer who came to buy something, and then the girls finally looked at him, and then at the portrait, and it was the same person. And then he gave them 1,000 rings, which really scared the girls, and they realized that they were in trouble. Incorrect time later, Kaina and Jinta are walking down the street. The guy says that everything is fine, and now they have this cane. The girl is surprised that the guy was able to win it the first time, but the main character says that they should also find a good armor, because both girls standing at the cash register began to get scared and say that they had fallen victim to a gacha vandal. Kaina supports his idea, because safety is above all. And then the main character finally finds Liafu among the crowd, and then he sees the cursed doll in her hands and asks if she really hasn't got rid of it yet. But she just looks at the guy sadly, not knowing what to do, and says that no one wants to take her away. Kaina adds that no one would have taken Liafu either. But her words were ignored, and Jinta takes out a staff from her bosom and tells Liafu to look at what he took out. The girl asks if this is really the cane. The main character offers her to use a cane to remove the curse from this doll. Liafu really likes this idea, and she borrows it from a guy for a while. An arm with a cane stands in front of her, and at the same moment, he begins to cast a spell that says that the cleansing light will reveal its covenant. And Jinta, watching from the sidelines, notices that the girl has become like a goddess, and she directs all this energy to the doll. And now the restoration takes place, and the doll is enveloped in bright light. After a moment, she becomes the most ordinary and unremarkable doll, and the girl is happy that everything worked out for her. And she falls to the ground from exhaustion, and the guy thinks that she is really good. And she did a pretty good job, and she notices that a girl can be a good support. And then they'll have a pretty balanced group, where there will be 2 damagers. These are he and Jinta. Kaina will be a magician, and Liafu will be a healer. Kira, the headman's daughter, tells the main character that the robe she talked about earlier, will she be able to give it to the bodice? He tells her to do what she knows, and then asks if she doesn't need her. But the girl explains to him that this size is too small for her and her hills won't fit there. Jinta is embarrassed by this, but he nevertheless made sure with his own eyes of what was said and said that it was not surprising, and Liafu was in complete shock at what was happening. And then Kaina hits the guy because he looks at her too intently, which is quite embarrassing. The main character apologizes to her, but she tells him that it's okay. It's just not worth looking at her like that in the middle of the street. In the hotel, he can enjoy her curves as much as he likes. The guy wonders if this is really true, but feels the ominous aura of the bodice coming from behind and refuses this offer. Sometime later, the guy asks if the girl has changed her clothes. She tells him that she is ready, and so Liafu comes out in a new outfit and shows it to the others. Jinta says that she looks great, and Kaina notices that this outfit suits her very well. But the girl herself is confused by the fact that the skirt is quite short and the navel is visible. She wonders if this is normal. She asks what the guy thinks about it. He thinks about it for a while and then says it suits her, and that she looks pretty cute in these clothes. It makes Liafu blush, but it's still nice for her. That's why she says she won't take it off then. They get amused at the girl's command, and Jinta says that since everyone is ready, they should finish off the goblins, and they finally go on a mission. The Fawn Valley. The heroes call he, but she doesn't respond. Liafu says that the dragon is nowhere to be found, and suggests that maybe she got bored and returned to the house by the lake. The guy doesn't listen to the girl and still can't figure out where he has gone. But then Kaina calls them, telling them to look in the direction she is pointing, and now they see their dragon being attacked by goblins. She does not attack them, and the barbarians, in turn, do not lose the chance to strike her, and the heroes come in shock that she could be attacked by goblins. Liafu stands and cries, telling Jinta to do something about what is happening, but the main character himself knows that he needs to save He, and he asks the dragon to wait for him, because soon he will help him. But he couldn't take it anymore, so she first glared at the goblins, which horrified them, and then she struck them, and after that she used her fiery breath, and each of them got what they deserved. And after all, she just let out a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, the goblins were already lying unconscious on the ground, and Jinta noticed that the dragons were really strong. Then, they came up to her, after everything that had happened, and they ask if he is okay, to which she only nods affirmatively, and Liafu says that even though she is small, she is still a dragon. And yet the main character says that they need to collect stones from the goblins that he defeated, and the girls, standing next to them, say that if you look closely, there are a lot of them here. Jinta counts them and realizes that there are as many as 10 of them, and then she turns to the dragon and thanks him, while stroking his head that thanks to her, they completed half of the quest. He just squeaks happily. Then they wonder if they can collect the other half, and wonder if there are any more goblins nearby. And then suddenly there's a scream, to which the main character turns around and tries to find who this scream belonged to. Meanwhile, 3 men are fighting a bunch of goblins, but they're not winning. And this angers them. They call goblins names and speak about them in a bad way. But while people are taking the time to speak out, goblins are actively attacking them, which caused one of them to fall to the ground. And their opponents, taking advantage of this chance, are already attacking him, ready to kill. But the man himself cannot believe it. And yet, he was very lucky, and all the goblins approaching him were killed by the sword of Jinta, who had just arrived and dealt with them. The other two people were also very lucky, and all the goblins just fell to the ground after being hit by magic. They see that it's a girl using it, and they realize that it's wind arrows. But they're wondering who the stranger is who saved them. And Lifa, joining them a little later, says that she was a little late, and she is also not sure if she can handle it. One of the people starts shouting for the goblins to stop, touch their cart, and break something there, because these are very expensive goods, and you cannot touch them. The girl can no longer stand on the sidelines, simply decides that it's time for her to start acting, and she raises her cane up and tells this dirty goblin to walk away from the luggage. At first, he doesn't understand what the girl wants to do, and then he sees how she tries to hit him with a cane and immediately uses her sewing, thanks to which she remains unharmed. He's mocking her, but his fun is coming to an end. When he sees a formidable dragon behind the girl, Lifa does not understand what is happening to him, so she turns around and sees Hiai behind her back, and this cannot but please her. The dragon begins to growl menacingly, and then she uses her dragon's breath against him. The goblins froze in horror, and Jinta, seeing the whole situation, realizes that this will end badly. So he asks she to stop, and she inhales everything back, which makes her feel bad. But the guy explains to her that she would just burn their product. Although it doesn't delight the dragon, she's already come to terms with it. Lifa, looking ahead, notices that the goblins are running away and tells the others about it so that they also pay attention to it. Kana puts her hand out and says she won't let them escape, but Jinta stops her and tells her not to shoot. The girl asks if he is sure, but the guy explains to her that they most likely have a shelter and suggests that they keep an eye on them and then clean up their nest. Kaina is thrilled with this idea, because that's what you'd expect from Mr. Jinta. And now the four of them are ready to fight the goblins. And the three wanderers don't understand who they are. Chasing the goblins, they entered a dark, dense forest. Evil cannot really see anything. Upset, Lifa says that apparently there's a nest of goblins here. But Kana doesn't really like being in this place, and she notices that it's pretty gloomy and creepy here, and she doesn't want to be here anymore. Jinta, looking around, notices that the forest is really very big. After a certain amount of time has passed, they notice on their way that wreckage of carts and remnants of cargo are lying everywhere, which have not arrived at their destination. And I wonder if it really belonged to the merchants who were attacked by goblins. Kanan notices something ahead and warns the main character about it. He turns around and, having almost lost his leg, manages to remove it in time from the arrow flying straight towards him. It's all the work of angry goblins who are right in front of them. These goblins are quite elite. They are quite strong. They are not deprived of intelligence. They have good defense, but not agility. Kaina looks at their stats and realizes that their level is quite high, but still only says that they finally deign to appear. The hero warns them to be careful. Goblins on flat terrain become more dangerous. And then he tells Lifa to support and watch everything from behind, and if any of them are injured, she should immediately use healing magic. And he asks her not to worry, because in this situation it's better for her to relax. Next, he gives instructions to Kaina and tells her to protect Lifa first. She also provided him with support if necessary, to which she confidently replies that she understood everything. And he says it might not be easy, but he hopes for them. And then he notices he has a confused look, and for a while he doesn't know what to say to her. And then he tells her to just watch everything and, if anything, just destroy everything. And with anything, just destroy everything without hesitation. The girls got into a combat readiness position, and Jinta says it's time for the fight to begin. And they, along with he, also got ready. And he tells the dragon to move forward, to which she responds only with a squeak. And now they're all actively fighting the goblins and defending themselves, trying to inflict at least some damage on them, and they seem to be doing a good job of it. And Lifa watches all this from the side and remembers the words of the main character that she needs to relax first of all. But then a goblin suddenly runs out to her from the side, holding a dagger in his hand, and negatively disposed towards her. The girl is terribly scared and does not know what to do. Therefore, the only thing that comes to her mind is to give up and not look at what is happening. But nothing happened to her, because Cain's arrow managed to hit the goblin in time. From what he was immobilized lying on the ground, unable to stand up anymore, and Lifa was just trying to come to her senses. But she was brought to her senses by the words of Kaina, who said that it was dangerous for princesses to stare around. The girl replied that she knew about it was dangerous for princesses to stare around. The girl replied that she knew about it. swinging his sword and inflicting quite a lot of wounds on the goblins. The main character asks what is wrong with them, and notices that they are very weak, and this is no good. The goblins just start growling angrily at this. But the dragon has tensed up at this time, which is why he looks in the other direction. Jinta noticed this and asks what happened to her and what is happening. And then, from behind the trees, another goblin comes out, much taller and larger than the most ordinary goblins, considering his characteristics. The girl sees that he is from the commander. His strength and defense are off the charts, and he's pretty tough. Kana can't figure out if it's really their reinforcements that have arrived. But without thinking twice, she decides to strike him, in the form of a heavenly shot. But after reaching him, this blow does absolutely no damage to him, and he still continues to stand still normally. The girl can't believe it, just like Jinta can't believe that Queena's magic just bounced off him and how strong he is. Liafu says it's Durate armor. Kana asks if Durate armor isn't made of iron balsa. Listening to their dialogue, the hero is completely unaware of these special terms. But this does not stop the girls, and they continue their dialogue, saying that the goblin armor is really not bad. Liafu says that he probably took it from the merchants. The guy decides to stop listening to their conversations and get down to business. And then Kana suggests to the main character that maybe they should retreat, because these armed goblins are quite dangerous. Jinta, who has already dealt with all the goblins and their lifeless bodies, are just lying on the ground. The main character asks the girl for forgiveness because he wants to destroy this nest today so that they no longer rampage on the roads. Kana is only fascinated by Mr. Jinta, and Liafu tells her not to forget that he is the one who defeated Bahamut. And as long as there are no more dangerous monsters than Bahamut, they have nothing to fear and be wary of. Kana sighs with relief and says that doesn't mean it, that she had become completely useless, like a burden. Liafu joins her and says that if no one gets hurt, then no one will need her either, and wonders if it would be better for Jinta to be alone. But the main character asks you to stop making things up, and then he explains to them that he can safely fight only because Quina and Liafu are covering for him. And he's fighting in front because that's his role in the group, and it's all because he doesn't want to put them both in danger. These words shock the girls and touch them to the depths of their souls. Kana says that he appreciates her so much and she will follow him all her life. Liafu says she will try her best too. Surprised by Jinta's actions, he stands in disbelief and then replies that he doesn't want to be hurt after all. And they say that it's time for them to move forward and move on. For the sake of peace on the roads, the guy tells them that in that case, it's really time for them. But he still asks them all not to relax because they do not know and cannot predict what awaits them ahead. However, they all understand perfectly well that a decisive battle with the goblins and the commander is approaching. After using her cane and casting a spell to heal the dragon's wounds, Liafu asks Hia if she's really okay and if she doesn't have any more pain. As a sign that everything is fine with her, she just squeaks. Jinta only notices that the girl is an excellent healer, to which she replies that it cannot be otherwise, because she is a goddess after all. But her point of view is nevertheless refuted and brought down from heaven to earth. And then the main character also approaches the dragon to check her condition. And then he apologizes to her for forcing Hikai to go with them, and when they come back, he will buy her a lot of delicious things. This delights the dragon, and she starts licking him from head to toe. But the guy is not entirely happy about this, so he asks her to stop doing it. But he doesn't stop, but only continues, which makes the guy laugh. And yet he tries to get his way and asks her for the second time to stop and stop doing it. The girls just watch in silence, not daring to interfere. And after that, the guy, who is completely soaked because of Hia's saliva, asks if anyone has a handkerchief or a towel by any chance. And Liafu asks if the guy is relaxing by chance and shirking his duties, but no one answered her. Sometime later, after a certain amount of time has passed, the heroes notice that the area is quite spacious, and they wonder if they really came to the deepest part of the forest. Kana abruptly became alert and began to listen to something, and then said that this place was very strange. The guy asked her in what sense it was strange. The girl explains to him that there is a tense atmosphere in this place, and she has a bad feeling about this. And then suddenly there is a sudden noise from behind them. All four turn around, trying to find the source of the sound. And then a huge oak tree falls sharply behind them, which scares them in earnest, and they cannot understand what is happening. And then at the same moment, they hear loud footsteps and the Goblin King stands in front of them, growling very loudly, which makes everyone present feel uncomfortable, which made them all seriously scared, and then they decided to retreat immediately. And Jinta stood and stared at him with his mouth agape while the girls ran away and only said that he was very huge, and he couldn't understand what kind of big guy he was. Meanwhile, the goblin took a good swing and hit the ground with all his might, which caused a huge crack to form there, causing an earthquake. And this crack reached Haya, and it took her by surprise and literally knocked her off her feet, which is why she was on the ground, unable to get up. He noticed the dragon that had been hit, and he began to worry very much about her because she was a member of their team. He landed quite far away, and this caused all her companions to be scared, and while they were all distracted by her, the goblin took advantage of this and approached the guy from behind. The goblin had already swung his weapon at him, and there was great determination in his eyes. But Jinta managed to dodge him in time, using his sword as a shield and hitting him at the same time. As a result, his sword was shattered into 2 pieces and the blade itself flew off in a direction unknown to them. This surprised the goblin very much because previously no one could even repel his attacks, and he did not expect anything like this from a simple person. Liafu and Kana watch all this from the side and are shocked by the guy's power. But their surprise does not end there, and they see a magic circle. And inside it stands the main character, and he curses the goblin for his sudden attack and such a clever trick, because it's unfair to attack from behind. And suddenly, there was a huge explosion in place of the magic circle and rejoiced, which was directed towards the goblin, who was not ready for such a sudden attack. So he did not have time to do anything. The main character asks him how he could dare to hurt their feelings and even touch her, so he will get what he deserves and will know how to harm them next time. He thrusts his sword forward, causing a funnel to form. The girls are still watching it all from the sidelines. Liafu is surprised by such a huge magical power that belongs to Jinta. Kana also does not stand aside, and also says how amazing the main character is. But then the guy realizes that he overdid it, and says under his breath that he seemed to be trying to restrain himself, but it didn't work out. And he formed a black flame in the sky, although weak, but still he can't believe it, because he didn't want something like this to happen at all. Sometime later, after everything has calmed down, all 3 of them are lying on the ground, trying to recover, because they are very tired after such a hard day. And suddenly, Liafu remembers the guy's words and asks if he really held back, because there wasn't even a wet spot left of the goblin. The guy plaintively apologizes to them for what happened. Then Kana asks if he is okay. Jinta tells her that she shouldn't die from this, and most likely she is hiding somewhere to confirm his suspicions. He gets up from the floor and goes in search of her, and then his attention is attracted by the sounds coming from nearby, and the main character assumes that he has hidden in the place he points to. The girls are exploring the territory with him and cannot find her. And then suddenly, someone comes up to Jinta and asks what exactly they are looking for. The guy, without turning around, answers the stranger that they are looking for. He. And this someone tells him that she is standing right here in front of him. The guy turns around, and he sees a naked little girl with horns in front of him, and the girl in turn glows with happiness because she has found them. He doesn't understand who it is or where it came from. And then she runs into the arms of the main character, because she's very happy to see her master, and then knocks him to the floor. And Jinta still doesn't understand who she is or what she's doing, but the girl tries to explain to him that she is he. The guy can't believe it for a long time, whether the girl in front of him is really a girl. This is from Hia's dragon, but it still doesn't look like she's lying, so they can only believe it. Liafu carefully examines Hia's body and notices that she has horns and wings on her body, and this is quite surprising. Kana also wasted no time and also studied the girl's body more closely. And then she said that she really looked like he. The guy was still in a state of shock. Does this mean that he is in front of them? The girl turned to him, and she replied that she had already said this more than once, but he did not believe her. Still, the main character wonders how it happened that she got a human body, but he doesn't know herself, but she still has some suspicions about it. And it happened when she was thrown against those boxes. She continues her story, saying that strange water got into her mouth, and she didn't have time to notice how she became like this. That is, she got into a human body. Jinta says that everything is clear to him, but in fact he understood absolutely nothing. And then suddenly he realizes that he has been a girl all this time, and he asks her if his guesses about this are correct. And Lifa, standing next to him, tells him not to look, because it's indecent, and he takes her cloak and puts it on Hia's body to hide everything. The girl herself says that this thing hinders her movements, and it is difficult for her to move. Lifa apologizes to her that she will soon find more suitable clothes for her. The hero picked up a bottle and went up to Hia and asked her if she had accidentally drunk the liquid. The girl nods her head affirmatively. Kaina asks what it is. Jinta says he doesn't know, because he just took it out of the box, even though there are almost none. They conclude that these potions must have been decorated, which must mean that they have the effect of metamorphosis. Someone didn't understand what Kaina said, so he clarifies whether this means that these potions turn monsters into people. After hearing this, Lifa asks how he is feeling now, if she has any pain, and if she is definitely okay. The girl does not fully understand the meaning of her words. Therefore, he begins to lift his cape quite high to check his physical condition, peering for a long time. She says that everything is fine, and she is fine. Lifa says that they have already understood everything and asks the girl to cover up as soon as possible. And at the same time, she closes the eyes of the main character so that he does not look. And then Kaina suggests that they should look around first. The guy agrees with her and thinks that maybe they will find a potion that will return Haya to her former appearance. The main character says that since they defeated the main goblins, he suggests that they first return to the city and report this to the guild. Everyone is happy to support his idea and immediately move forward. Sometime later, when they are already in the city and walking along small streets, and then they enter the store, the seller asks if he should evaluate all the kernels that are on his table. The heroes brought him a whole handful of them, which put him in a pretty strong stupor, because he did not expect this. He wonders how many cores there are in total. The main character tells him that yes, he needs to evaluate them, but they need expertise for a 20-something report. The man says that he understands his wishes, and warns them that it will take him some time to do this, and then begins to count 20 stones. Hai attentively watches the seller and how he writes something on the parchment with a pen. The man asks the girl if she really has never seen a feather in her life. The girl tells him that he understood everything correctly, and she is surprised, because the pen is such a strange, but at the same time interesting thing. These words confuse the seller quite a lot, and he says that he is a very strange child, but suddenly the man notices something while counting the cores, and thrusting it into his hand, he says that apparently an ordinary stone got into the cores, so he asked the young man to rub it. Jinta did not expect this at all, and did not believe what was happening, but then immediately apologized. And then he starts thinking to himself that he picked up this stone in the forest where he killed the Goblin King, and it seemed to him that it was a goblin core, but apparently he was mistaken in his judgments. And he wants to ask Lifa about this stone in more detail. But as soon as he wanted to do this, he couldn't find the girls next to him, so he wondered where they had gone. The salesman told him that if he was talking about the girls he came with, they were in the children's clothing department. Meanwhile, the girls are shouting Haya's name, and then they run up to her, happy, with children's clothes in their hands. And they ask her to look carefully at what they have picked up for her, and then they offer her to try on these things. He herself is in shock. The girl eventually said that she didn't want to and wouldn't do it, and she didn't understand what they were doing, and he was shouting her master's name, trying to escape from them. Meanwhile, Lifa and Kaina ask Haya to stand still, and they assure her that she will definitely like them. Sometime later, the girls still manage to dress up He in a dress, and they begin to admire the girl. Lifa says that she looks very cute, and Kaina compares her to a doll. The girl herself can't believe it, and now she has already changed 2 images. In one, she was wearing jeans, a jacket, and a beret, and the last outfit she wore was a soft and fluffy dragon costume. The girls couldn't do without attention, and they were still loudly exclaiming and touched by the girl. They say that He is very cute in everyone. He finished changing her clothes, then she was already falling off her feet from fatigue. But Lifa and Kaina continued to call her a cutie, and Kaina came up and offered to try it on again. But the girl is only asking for salvation. After changing his clothes again, he approaches Mr. Jinta, and she says that Lifa and Kaina are very angry and cruel because they bullied her all the time, forcing her to dress up in different outfits. He explains to Haya that they did not mean to mock her at all, and asks her for forgiveness on their behalf. And all because the girl is so cute that they couldn't help themselves. He doesn't understand what kind of cute she is. The guy explains to her that she is like a princess of the dragon country. After these words, the girl is delighted. And with joy, he jumps on Jinta's neck and says that he really wants to wear these clothes. The seller understands the guy without words and says that the price of this dress will cost him 4,800 rin. But he also gets tickled. Sometime later, the main character, looking at the piece of paper, says that they have to report to the guild, and their task will be completed. Liafu says that it's all easy, but Kana doesn't understand why the girl is happy. Meanwhile, he walks a little forward and whirls around her axis, admiring everything, because there is so much here that she has not seen before. Looking at the girl, Jinta notices that she must be having a lot of fun. He confirms his guesses, and then she says that she always dreamed of walking around the city at least once, because she was always waiting for them at home. But now she is very happy to be with the girls and the master. All three of them listen attentively to what the girl says. After all, this is commonplace for them. But for her, it is something incredible. Kana notices that the girl has most likely been lonely all this time. Liafu agrees with her and says that they didn't think about her feelings at all. Then he suddenly stops abruptly because her stomach starts rumbling loudly. And the girl says that she's very hungry and she has never had this before. The main character suggested that they go somewhere to eat because they are hungry themselves. He asked the girl what she would like to eat and if she has any food preferences. He does not believe that she's being asked about this, and Jinta tells her that they will buy whatever she wants to eat after thinking for a while. The girl says in that case, she wants to eat the goblin. All three of them are shocked by what they have heard and cannot believe it. So they stand in silence, because they did not expect the girl to say something like that. Then he asks her to choose something else, but they don't understand the reason, because he told her to choose whatever she wants. The guy apologizes to her and explains that people don't eat that. Sometime later, they were already at the hotel, but as it turned out a little later, they would be in the same room. The main character said, apologizing, as there were no other options left, but Liafu tells him that this is not such a problem. He notices that there are only 3 beds in this room. Now Kana is also paying attention to this and says that it can definitely become a huge problem. But then a brilliant idea suddenly comes to her and she claps her hands with joy. And then, without thinking twice, she says that she will sleep with Jinta. But then she starts screaming because Liafu came up to her and started tickling her. At the same time, saying that she knew perfectly well that the girl would say that. And then she hugs the girl and says that there won't be any problems if she sleeps with he. But Kane doesn't like it at all, and she says it's not fair at all, because she also wants to sleep with he. But Liafu tells her that the girl belongs only to her. The elf does not understand who decided this. And then, trying to pull the girl out of Liafu's arms, she begins to pull her towards herself and says that he will naturally want to sleep with her. Both girls let he go. But then Liafu, calling the girl, says go to her because she has pineapples. Kana is not thrilled with this, because it is unfair to bribe with food, and she tells Liafu about this, which he doesn't listen to her, and he just asks them to stop, because they behave like little children. And then, having sat the girls on the bed, she says that she has a good idea, and taking the girls by the hand, they all fall on the main character, who is lying on his bed. He says it's the only solution. The girls really like this outcome of offense. Only Jinta's not thrilled about it. So he pushes them out of his bed, which makes the girls fly quite high, and then tells them that he wouldn't be able to sleep that way. A little girl with long and gathered hair and 2 ponytails thanks the main character, calling him Mr. Kazami, and smiling very sweetly, showing her teeth. And then she tells him that she couldn't have expected at all that he would destroy a whole nest of goblins, and now they don't bother them anymore, and her work is getting more and more interesting. He said he was surprised, but still glad. The girl with the 2 pigtails told him that he had really helped them a lot. Liafu and Kana are only watching and listening to this dialogue from the side. The elf cannot understand what kind of feline voice she has. Liafu is only amazed at her loving gaze and thinks to herself whether this means that Jinta likes it when people talk to him like that little girl with 2 pigtails. Because she was openly flirting with him, and he says that they have received a reward, and then asks what they should do next, and suggests that they go out to eat somewhere. Liafu calls Mr. Kazami, and he says that she also wants to go with him to the same item store, while using the manner of speech of a little girl with two pigtails. But the other guys didn't listen to her at all. And even more so, Jinta, having rejected the girl, he asks the girl if she has any recommendations for the next task. And a little girl with two pigtails, having searched for something in her desk, she wonders what about the query that appeared in front of them. Kana, after reading the headline, does not fully understand how it is to find a broken man. And even of this rank, the girl with two pigtails tells him that initially the reward for this case was less, but this person has not been able to find it for 6 months, so the reward is increased. Kana says that they seem to want to find him very badly, and the little girl with the two pigtails tells her that it's probably true. And then she says that Mr. Line received financial support from this company, and apparently he was researching some kind of drug. And then he just disappeared, as if he had never existed. But the most interesting thing about this case is that he disappeared with the research materials. Disappointment can be seen on the main character's face, because how could he just run away? After hearing the warnings from this girl, Liafu wanted to take this assignment even more. So she asked Jinta to take this quest. The guy turns to her and says that he wants to take him too. But the only problem is that it will be very difficult to find a man who disappeared 6 months ago. Kana says there's probably a lot missing in this case. After all, this man just disappeared with the results of his research, which is why they can't miss this quest. The girl talked about it with such enthusiasm in her eyes that at first the rest of the team looked at her distantly, but then they supported her and Jinta said that running away was the wrong decision. And with confidence in his eyes and full determination, he offers them to take this quest. A little girl with two pigtails gave them information about the case, and holding a piece of paper in her hands, Jinta asks if Mr. Line is really depicted on it. Then the guy asks the girl if they have any more information. After looking at this piece of paper with his photo again, the main character says that he is once again convinced that it was a waste of time to take this quest. He comes up to Jinta to take a look, and she screams in surprise. And then she says that she knows him, and that this man lives near the owner's house. The main character does not understand what she means at first, and is very surprised by it, and then asks if it is true. And the girl says it's like that. Sometime later, the four of them are riding in a carriage. He is holding a piece of paper with a picture of a man in her hands. And Kana asks if this is really the man from the photo, and she was not mistaken. The girl says there is no doubt, because he constantly came to the forest and gave her pineapples. That's why she remembered him. But a few days before the main character's arrival in the forest, this man left there. Analyzing what he said, the guy wonders what it means that he disappeared for a few days before he arrived there. He wonders if this means that Mr. Line lived there for 6 months and left again a few days ago, while Liafu lies on the guy's lap, as she is strongly pointed. And then Jinta asks Haya if she knows where he could go, to which the girl replies that she doesn't, realizing that she doesn't know anything else. The main character said that if that's the case, he suggests that they first inspect his house, and suddenly they can find at least some clues there. Kana agrees with him and says that since he left only a few days ago, there could have been footprints there. Sometime later, when they have already arrived at his house, Kana is very happy to be here, because this is her house with Mr. Jinta. Liafu does not understand her joy, and, saying that she also lived there, he asks, what about her? Coming closer to the girl, the guy, stroking her on the head, says that her house too, or to be more precise, their house. These words, please. Hia. Sometime later, when they have already entered the house, Liafu and he are sitting in the living room, and the goddess decides to ask how long the girl has been living in this forest, to which she replies that she doesn't even remember. But Liafu doesn't finish her interrogation and asks where her mom and dad are. He doesn't know what to say to this for a long time and remains silent for a while. Without waiting for an answer to the question, Liafu asks her another question. Does he want to sleep? But she doesn't get a clear answer to her question. So she asks the girl for forgiveness and says that she can safely go to bed. And then he looks at he and realizes that she is already fast asleep, and also that the girl is very cute. They are in Mr. Lane's office. Kanan notices that the guy is holding something in his hands and asks what it is. Jinta tells her that these are Line's notes, or to be more precise, his diary. The girl asks if there is anything there that can give them a clue in his search. After being silent for a while, the guy says yes. And then he turns seriously to Kaina and suggests that she destroy this quest. Jinta, standing in Ryan's office, says that now it became clear to him that his company was just working in a research laboratory. He learned this information from his diary. That is, he was forcibly forced to study this medicine. And according to the diary, the medicine that was ordered to be developed is a powerful anesthetic that is effective even against monsters. And to try out this drug, the company prepared experimental monsters, and a female fire dragon was caught on Mount Nara, and her egg was captured along with her. This female dragon turned out to be Hiya's mother, and she, the girl herself, sleeps sweetly with Liafu on the couch, unaware of anything. After listening to everything the main character said earlier, Kaina clarifies whether this means that he was a test subject. The guy reads the diary and says that at that time the girl was still inside the egg, so they couldn't put experiments on her. But her mother was really used as a test subject. The diary says that during the research she was drugged with a huge amount of drugs, and it was very terrible towards her. That is why Mr. Ryan, who was categorically against this company, he just took and stole the finished preparation with an egg and then completely escaped from the laboratory. Kaina clarifies that in this case, Mr. Ryan ended up living in secret in this place and subsequently took care of Hiya. The main character says that Mr. Ryan also found out that his search was announced. And, fearing that he would be discovered, he left this house in a hurry. He went into the forest. It was mentioned in the last entry that was in the diary, and he wrote it about 2 weeks ago. Kaina stands silently and does not say anything. And the main character continues and explains that completing this quest is equivalent to that they would put Mr. Ryan in the hands of this company, and he just can't afford to give away such a good person who helped Hiya survive. Kaina was silent for a while, and then asked Jinta if this meant that he was going to give up the quest. The guy says that she understood everything correctly, and yet he asks her for forgiveness, because he will not be able to get over himself. But the girl calms him down, saying that she understands him perfectly, because she feels the same way as he does. This makes the guy happy, and he feels relieved after hearing this, so a slight smile appears on his face. But then they are abruptly interrupted by some loud sound. They cannot understand what just happened. Kaina doesn't understand where the sound is coming from. Jinta says it's from the first floor, and they immediately run out of the office and go down to the first floor. On the way to the source of the sound, Kane asks if it's really the people of that company who came here. Or maybe they really want to steal Hick. He says he won't let them do it. The hero calls the girls by their first names. And as they approach the first floor, they see Liafu touching Hiya on her back, who has turned back into a dragon. The main character has no more words. The four of them look at each other, not understanding what is going on. Jinta and Kaina are skeptical. Liafu realizes that she might get in a lot of trouble, and she panics and stammers that she will explain everything to them right away. It all started with the girl just sitting on the couch with he, and then a moment later, she was already on her back and the girl was already in dragon form. And yet it seems to her that they did not understand her, but the main character stops her, saying that they initially understood everything, and they do not need to repeat it. And Kaina only argues that it's just that the effect of the medicine has ended, and she has become a dragon again. Sometime later, being outdoors, or to be more precise on the lawn in front of the house, the guy tells some ball to open, at the same time, directing all his power at he, who simply floats in the air and then ends up on the ground. Jinta says that apparently he really can put anything into his subspace. Kaina says that it's good because they didn't have to break down the walls to get he out of the house. Meanwhile, Liafu studies Mr. Ryan's diary and says that everything is clear to her because she was so impressed by the award. That the company mentioned in the diary is called Aldatis has been completely forgotten, and they definitely have a bad reputation, and it seems that they are selling weapons and slaves. She agrees that they need to give up on this quest, but she's wondering what about Hiya's mom, because it says in Mr. Ryan's diary that she was put on a ship near Mount Nair. And if that's true, then she wants to help her as soon as possible. She wants Hihi to be able to meet her mom again. That's why she wants to ask Jinta for something. But the guy can't hear her because he's too far away. And he asks why she's frozen there, and asks her to hurry up so that she can get on the road as soon as possible. But the girl doesn't understand where they are going. The main character replies to her that, of course they are going to Mount Nari, where else? After all, they need to save Hiei's mom. Or the girl wants to stay here. Liafu says that this is not the case at all, and she is already on her way. Jinta was holding Liafu in his arms, so she asked him to be gentle and not to treat her rudely. She was embarrassed by the position she was in, which caused her face to turn slightly red. The guy looked at the girl and said her name. He only thought that it was only a matter of time before they all reached Mount Nari, because he had a plan aimed at Hichan. Since the sphere in which the young man kept everything he needed would not accommodate all his companions, he decided to place only the goddess there. He decided to do it faster, so he just lowered his arms, and then his body fell. The girl, falling into the dark sphere, screamed that she asked the young man to be more gentle, but he wanted to do everything faster, so he did not listen to her. The young man looked at the scoreboard that appeared, which highlighted everything that was in the inventory, such as a purse, clothes, house keys, food, and now the goddess was listed there. Quina even said that she felt sorry for her, but it was necessary. Due to the fact that the dragon would not be able to carry 3 people on itself at once, it was decided to put someone in a dark sphere for transportation. The girls played a game, and the goddess lost, so she didn't go with them. The young man asked his companions to move out as soon as possible, so as not to keep Liafu waiting for a long time. Kina seemed to be saying that it was a necessary measure, but she didn't look too upset. He looked at the display board again, reflecting the contents of the inventory, and noticed that the amount of food supplies was gradually decreasing. The guy assumed that Liafu was eating them while he was inside. Jinta wasn't happy with his supplies being used up, so he told the girl to stop eating what he had left for an emergency. However, it seemed that the girl was offended by the young man, so she did not respond to him and continued to do what she had been doing before. The young man decided not to waste any more time talking and again told his companions to hurry up and get on the road as soon as possible, to which he received immediate consent. Some time passed, and the guy decided to ask Quina and asked her how long they still had to be on the road and if she even knew the local places. The girl replied that she only knew the right direction, but without details. Jinta sighed because of this answer and thought that putting Liafu in the inventory was not the best idea, because maybe she would have been able to answer his questions. Suddenly, the girl sitting behind the guy pointed to the mountain and asked if this was the rock they were looking for, to which she received a positive response from her companion. Jinta said that because night was approaching, they should spend the night in the forest they were in and continue climbing in the morning at dawn. Kina supported this decision. After that, the young man remembered about the goddess and began to open the black sphere, hoping that the girl had not eaten all the supplies he was preparing. Putting his hand into the sphere, Jinta began to look for the goddess there, groping for something. The guy thought he had grabbed onto Liafu's clothes. Taking a firmer grip, the young man began to pull the thing towards himself. However, the goddess asked him not to do this and to stop. Pulling sharply on an item of clothing, Jinta accidentally took off the girl's skirt without even realizing what had happened. Liafu fell out of the sphere, losing a few more things along the way, and fell to the ground, complaining that she was in pain. The guy looked at the goddess and immediately apologized to her. The girl was lying on the ground without a skirt and seemed about to cry from the current situation. Quina, noticing what had happened, said that if the young man wanted to take off someone's clothes so badly, then he could do it with her and not insist on Liafu. Jinta immediately began to justify himself, saying that he hadn't thought about it. Still holding someone else's thing in his hand, the young man grinned and, apologizing again, said that he did not know that it was a girl's skirt, to which he received a remark and an order to immediately return the skirt. The goddess decided to ask if they would definitely be able to find Hichan's mom in this place. Even though they had already come this far, they had no guarantees. Jinta looked at the girl and said he had no doubt about it, because everyone wanted to help the dragon and make her happy. The guy continued and said that they were definitely on the right track, and to understand that, you just have to look at Hichan. Turning his head towards their dragon, the young man said that from the moment they approached the mountain, Hichan kept looking in one direction, towards the mountain. The young man also noted that their dragon wasn't even paying attention to them, so Quina assumed that Hichan might be feeling her mother's aura. The moon had already risen above the rock, and the stars were burning in the sky. Jinta, addressing the dragon, asked her to wait a little longer. The guy promised that they would definitely help her meet her mom. A blonde-haired young man entered one of the chambers and bowed to the man who was there. The older man asked the guy if they had found Ryan Friedman, to which he received a refusal and an apology from the guest. The man, whose name was Acello, was Aldada's supervisor. He said that Ryan had no choice but to come to him anyway, so he would definitely give up soon. Acello continued and noted that even the prototypes that remained in the laboratory were stolen by the goblins during transportation. The grown man said that they could make a lot of money if they could sell them along with their subordinate monsters, but they had to do something about the fire dragon as soon as possible. Recalling the imprisoned creature, he said that even though the experiment had weakened it somewhat, it was still a very valuable asset, so they kept it locked up. Next, Acello turned to the man standing behind him, whose name was Meldus, and said that he trusted him with the rest. Meanwhile, Jinta and her companions continued on their way as a new day had come and it was light. However, the path was not easy. The guy got tired quickly, and it seemed to him that he was doing mountain climbing, and Liafu said that she could no longer feel her own legs. Quina warned the young man about the cliff that awaits them. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Quina decided to joke about Liafu's forms and compared them to the rock they were all walking towards. The goddess immediately protested and did not want to listen to something like that. Liafu began to prove that the girl was wrong, but Quina did not even think to believe her. The girl's argument was interrupted by a young man who was surprised by something. Jinta, coming closer, saw the cage in the mountain and realized that, most likely, that was where Hichan's mother was. The guy couldn't believe that they had finally achieved their goal and found their dragon's mother. Quina also noted a strange detail because no one was guarding the creature behind bars. As they got even closer, everyone present saw how big the cage was, and there really was no one with her. The company looked at the dragon in front of them and realized that Hichan's mom was not moving, as if she was asleep. Hichan approached Jinta and asked if this was really her parent, to which she received an affirmative answer. The dragon couldn't believe that they had actually found her closest relative. However, when Hichan called her mom, she reacted very strangely. Liafu seemed to be afraid that the dragon behind the bars had made an unkind sound, and Quina noticed that Hichan's mom was behaving very strangely, and something was clearly wrong. Jinta didn't say anything and just wanted to understand what caused this behavior of the elder dragon. Looking at the stats board that appeared, the young man realized that her health was severely reduced and she was very weak. However, before she could do anything, Hichan's mom glared at the people and seemed to want to attack them. The guy ordered his companions to step back immediately. Hichan's mom stood up to her full height, showing her superiority in size, and growled loudly, startling everyone present. However, the creature behind the bars did not just want to scare the people who came to her, but also decided to attack them using its flame. Hichan was shocked. She couldn't believe that her own mother wanted to harm her and her friends. Jinta seemed surprised by this behavior, but he reacted instantly, drawing his sword to block the blow. The dragon, even though he was in a cage, used his fiery breath and directed it at the uninvited guests. The guy raised his sword and used the dark flame to counter the attack directed in their direction. Hichan also stood not far from her friends and watched as her mother refused to let anyone near her. Even with his strength and the power of his sword, it was difficult for the young man to deflect such a fire. Jinta was breathing heavily and sweating, saying it was very dangerous. He managed to deflect the dragon's breath, but it still grazed him slightly. Seeing that the young man had coped with the impending danger, the girls ran up to him and began to ask if everything was all right with him. Liafu didn't understand what had just happened, or why Hichan's mom was attacking them all. Jinta, looking at the creature's characteristics again, was again surprised by its condition. The guy explained that the elder dragon did not understand at all what he was doing, because her mind was clouded by medicines. The young man was sure that Hichan's mom did not even understand what she was doing, and was not aware of her actions. Jinta suggested that if the dragon behind the bars was under the influence of something, then Liafu's cleansing magic might have been able to fix the situation. The girl, after thinking about it, confirmed that she could try. Suddenly, Acello and his guards appeared next to the young man and his companions. The man was angry and asked what strangers were doing here. Jinta wondered a little where these people came from. One of the henchmen of the disgruntled man rudely asked the strangers what they were doing in such a place, and who they were in general. Quina decided to answer, and, clinging to Jinta, said that they were fighters for justice, who wanted to free the fiery dragon from imprisonment. Liafu, who was in the back, said that now was not the time to fool around. The man was not happy with this answer, and suggested that perhaps these people were merchants and just decided to steal the fire dragon. The guy standing nearby seemed to be waiting for his order to attack. The swordsman said he recognized Jinta because it was clear from his look who he was. It seemed that many people knew him. because the young man had incredible luck. Uccello asked who he was, because he had never heard of the guy. One of the guards said that the guy is a dangerous magic swordsman. The warrior continued and told how his friends, who were in Kokina, almost died at his hands. The rest of the guys who came with the man began to worry that now the young man was not alone. There was a dragon and his assistants next to him. Uccello told everyone to calm down. Turning around, the man, pointing to the rock, ordered his men to quickly open the gate to free the elder dragon. However, Uccello did not do this out of good intentions. He calmed down his guards and told them not to be afraid of anything. After that, the man looked at the ledge where the girl, Lady Meldis, who was the mistress of monsters, was. Jinta, hearing who was behind the man, was surprised and only asked if it was really the one they were talking about. Liafu also couldn't figure out if this girl was going to tame Hee-chan's mom. The ground shook again, kicking up dust, but not from the impact, but from the fact that the man's order had been carried out. Hee-chan's mom didn't seem to want to attack anyone anymore, so she just looked at those around her. Jinta, along with his companions, was in shock. Hee-chan didn't expect her mom to be such a big dragon. Quina also stated the fact that the adult dragon is much bigger than their friend. The man and his guards saw how terrifying the dragon looked, froze and could not contain their fright. Jinta looked at them and realized that they were very afraid of Hee-chan's mom. Recovering from the shock, Uccello remembered the girl in the robe and shouted at her. Meldis had to help them. Meldis looked very focused and heard that the man wanted all those who displeased him to be overtaken by divine punishment. However, the Lady of Monsters did not have time to do anything, because she was overtaken by the fiery breath of Mama Hee-chan. Uccello, seeing this, shouted at the girl. Mrs. Meldis was engulfed in flames, and the people standing nearby saw that the girl's body was really devoted to the fire. Someone was shouting that they urgently needed to find water. Jinta and Quina, seeing the current situation, couldn't believe it. They stood in silence, wondering why the girl was so easy to defeat. The young man, hearing the stones falling next to him, turned and looked at the place. A few moments later, Meldis fell into the place where the guy was looking, thereby extinguishing herself. The Lady of the Monsters lay motionless, and there was complete silence. No one expected what happened. Jinta, unable to stand it, decided to ask if Mrs. Meldis was all right. Perhaps she needed help. The girl continued to lie in the position in which she had fallen and did not answer anything, just looked at the young man. Jinta couldn't understand what that look meant and fell silent again, while Hee-chan, standing at the back, looked scared by the atmosphere. After a couple of seconds, the girl in the robe jumped up and quickly began to move away from the guy, who was confused by this behavior. After coming to his senses, Jinta asked a rhetorical question why Meldis ran away. Uccello couldn't seem to believe that Lady Meldis had abandoned him and just run away, because he was counting on her support to tame the dragon. Realizing that now no one would help the man and his guards, the guys with Uccello also decided to run away. The group was rapidly retreating into the distance, shouting to the girl to wait for them, but the Lady of the Monsters had not been around for a long time. Kuina, looking at the escape of the men, asked what it was all about. Jinta chuckled. As it turned out, the Elder Dragon's calmness did not last long, as Hee-chan's mom attacked them again, showing that she was unfriendly. Jinta decided to ask Liafu how far her cleansing abilities could work, because he was determined to bring Hee-chan's mom back to normal. The girl thought about it, and later said that her magic could only be effective 3 or 4 meters away from her. The guy assumed that the range would be small. The young man reasoned that at such a close range, the dragon would be able to attack with its tail and claws, not to mention its fiery breath. If Liafu gets too close, she definitely won't be able to survive. The guy said it was too dangerous to be around Hee-chan's mom right now, so he asked Liafu and Quina to be taken away. He also told Quina to take care of the goddess. The girl with short hair did not understand why the young man was doing this and asked what he was up to. Jinta replied that he wanted to reassure Hee-chan's mom first. The girls didn't object and listened to what the guy told them. They climbed onto Hee-chan and began to walk away in the opposite direction. Liafu turned around and looked at Jinta. She was worried about him. The older dragon began to attack the guy and, so far, without using fire, struck at the young man with his big paws. Jinta fended off the attacks, but it wasn't easy for him. The elder dragon dodged attacks and flew into the sky when necessary, making it very difficult to hit him. Jinta understood that, unlike Hee-chan, An adult dragon could not only fight on the ground, but also rush into the sky, which proved his wisdom. That's why the guy assumed that his attacks would simply not reach the target. Suddenly, a funnel began to form around the young man, which raised smoke next to the guy. He did not understand what was happening, so he raised his head up. When he saw that Hee-chan's mom had assumed an attack position, he couldn't believe that she was going to attack him from the air. But more importantly, the young man was not thinking about himself. He was worried that the blow might be so strong that it would reach his girlfriends. Jinta did not immediately understand what the elder dragon was going to do, but it turned out that he was not aiming at the guy, but wanted to harm the fleeing girls. The young man realized that he would not have time to protect his friends and did not know what to do. He only shouted the name of their friend, who was a dragon, and hoped for her. The pillar of flame was approaching, and it seemed that the girls were doomed to collide with it because they would not be able to escape. However, something happened that no one expected. Hee-chan spread her wings and was able to fly up, dodging the blow. Kuina and Liafu almost fell over in surprise, clutching their friend's back. Jinta couldn't hide his surprise and admiration. He seemed to have forgotten that he was in battle and was only looking at his girlfriend. The young man did not take his eyes off his companions and was amazed by their flight, because Hee-chan had never flown before. Jinta couldn't figure out when Hee-chan had learned to fly. He looked at the scoreboard with her stats, and a new skill, Flight, appeared on it. The dragon circled in the sky, moving away from a dangerous place, and the young man reflected that she might have raised her level by defeating goblins and all sorts of monsters while they were traveling. Considering that the place was now quite safe, the dragon stopped and lowered her friends to the ground. Liafu praised Hee-chan, saying that she did well, because now she has a new ability. Kuina noted that they were quite far from the battlefield, so she and Liafu would stay waiting, and Hee-chan should fly and help Jinta. The dragon didn't mind, because she also wanted to benefit the young man, as well as save her mother, so Hee-chan left the girls and flew back. The guy, seeing that his girlfriend was flying to his aid, was very happy. Jinta turned to Hee-chan and told her that his strength would not be enough to defeat the elder dragon, so he asked her to help him. Now, working together, the young man was confident that they would be able to save Hee-chan's mother. The guy's girlfriend was inspired, and also had no doubt about their success. Jinta, controlling the dragon, flew straight at the adult. Hee-chan used her fiery breath and thrust it forward. The elder dragon, seeing that flames were flying in his direction, did not fly away or dodge, but only covered himself with his wing from the blow. Surprisingly, Hee-chan's mom didn't just get hurt, but made the fire evaporate. The little dragon was shocked, because Hee-chan did not expect her mother to be so skilled in battle. Jinta also couldn't believe that their attack had just disappeared. Without wasting any time, the adult decided to attack its opponents, using its fiery breath again. Hee-chan abruptly dodged the blow, losing confidence that they would be able to withstand such a strong opponent. Jinta decided to speculate that perhaps the adult also had a blessing skill. However, his thoughts were interrupted by his girlfriend's voice. The young man was distracted and decided to look in the direction in which the fireball of their rival flew and became worried. The guy realized that the attack was not directed at him again. A fireball flew towards the girls standing on the ledge. There was nowhere to run, so Queen told Liafu to get behind her as soon as possible. However, the goddess did not understand why she needed it. Queen also noted that the distance is not enough to avoid a blow, so it remains only to accept it. The girl struck a pose and began to invoke magic. She looked ahead and shouted at the dragon, telling her not to underestimate her. Kuina decided to use a wall of wind, creating a sphere that would protect her and the goddess from impact. The girl, after stopping the attack, immediately began to extinguish the burning areas of clothing, and realized how difficult it was for Jinta to fight such opponents, because it was very difficult for her to defend herself. The guy, watching the girls from a height, asked if everything was all right with his companions, to which Koina replied that they were fine. The girl also added that the young man doesn't have to worry about them, so he should focus all his attention on helping Hee-chan. The young man began to attack more actively, and explosions were heard everywhere. The battle was in full swing, but no one wanted to give up. Later, the young man realized the black flame was not strong enough because attacking the dragon with fire was not very effective. Jinta thought about getting closer to strike with a sword. It was worth changing tactics, because if this was not done, the battle could continue indefinitely. The guy looked at Hee-chan and asked if they could get closer to her mom so that he could make a sword attack. Jinta did not doubt his friend, but he asked her if he could rely on her, because it was very dangerous. However, Hee-chan wasn't going to give up. Quina, watching from the sidelines, nevertheless noticed that their friend seemed to be gradually starting to slow down. Liafu also said that she might not have gotten used to flying for so long yet, because it was new to her. The goddess reasoned that Hee-chan might not be able to continue dodging her mother's attacks any further, because they were too different in strength. Jinta tried to calm his friend down and support her so that she would not give up. However, Hee-chan was really gradually running out of steam and expending a lot of strength to fly. Hee-chan's mom didn't seem tired at all, and was preparing to launch a new attack. She attacked again and again. The young man decided to change his approach and try to attack with a sword, so he flew around from the other side and headed straight for the adult. The girls who were watching what was happening on the battlefield were surprised that Jinta decided to fly to the breach. Liafu noticed that they were going to get close before the dragon shot its fiery breath at them. It's useless. They won't make it. Hee-chan's mom used her ability and launched a fire attack aimed at her daughter instead of the girls. Hee-chan took all the attack on herself and the flames enveloped her. Liafu and Quina, who were watching the course of events, became very worried, because serious damage was possible from such an attack. However, what everyone noticed later, including the adult, was that Jinta was not on Hee-chan. Once behind the adult, Jinta swung his sword and warned Hee-chan's mom that it would hurt a little. The young man advised the elder dragon to grit his teeth and struck with his sword. It was the first attack that actually reached the opponent. The young man was pleased with himself, because his plan had worked. He had no intention of harming the dragon, but he advised her to be quiet. The sword touched the adult's head, after which Jinta said that everything would be over soon and Hee-chan's mom would feel better. The young man, remaining in the air, exerted all his strength and threw the dragon's body down with his blow. The creature landed on the ground and seemed unable to attack him anymore. Hee-chan's mom was really unconscious now. The blow was very strong, but it was necessary in order to help her in the future. Quina and Liafu saw that the guy had won now, and they managed to make sure that the adult wouldn't attack them anymore. However, the goddess was worried about what would happen to their friend now, because the big dragon had managed to deliver a strong blow. The goddess praised her friend and said that she was doing well. Quina also noted that due to the fact that their friend and her mother are both fire dragons, the flame was simply useless to use. The young man noticed that the fiery breath, on the contrary, helped them a lot, because hiding behind it, they managed to get into a blind spot. Quina, upon hearing this, said that such a plan was very clever. Jinta was glad that everything turned out as he had expected, so the young man thanked his friend and said that they had succeeded thanks to her. The goddess said that now it was her turn to do something to help her friends. She wanted to use the magic of purification and healing, removing the bad effects from Hee-chan's mom. Liafu was scared and couldn't use her abilities. She asked her companions what was going on. Kyunia pointed in the other direction and told him to look in that direction. The goddess realized that a landslide had begun and was even more afraid. Quina suggested that he might have appeared because Jinta was fighting with an adult dragon. The girls started to panic. One of them suggested running away urgently, and the second asked where they needed to go because the stones were falling very quickly. The goddess, after thinking for a while, suggested the option of hiding in the sphere that Jinta used to store items. But the young man did not agree with such an offer. The young man said that if they did, there would be no one left outside to get them back and they would be trapped inside. Liafu was desperate and did not know what else could be offered to avoid a collision. The goddess was worried that she couldn't help her comrades in any way. However, Jinta tried to calm everyone down and told them not to be afraid. He added that he would be able to push back the landslide if he used his black flame. Quina was less scared, but asked if it was even possible to implement the young man's plan. The guy agreed, but advised me to move away from him, just in case. Jinta formed a sphere of magic around himself and held the sword in front of him, accumulating more strength to use his ability. He understood that if he failed, the situation would become very scary. Accumulating more and more energy, the young man did not doubt himself and was confident that he would be able to withstand a natural disaster, because not only his own, but also other people's lives depend on him. However, trying to focus only on the disaster, the guy heard someone's voice. He couldn't tell if he was imagining it, or if someone was really trying to tell him something. The voice that suddenly appeared was telling the young man to become the one who controls the resolution. Jinta didn't want to listen to anything and ordered the voice to be silent, because the guy didn't know who it belonged to. Due to the fact that Jinta has accumulated a lot of energy, his magic has become very strong. By stepping on the ground with his foot, he caused it to crack. The young man was preparing to strike and swung his sword, while repeating what he had said earlier. He wanted to be out of the way. Jinta launched an attack and directed all his forces towards the landslide. The black flame faced a natural disaster. The young man saw how a shockwave began to form due to the contact of his power and the force of nature. However, the impact was so strong that the black flames destroyed the mountain from which rocks and trees fell. The black flame did not stop at one ruined mountain. It passed through several more and destroyed the rocks standing further away. Jinta stood in place and looked at what he had done. The blow was getting farther and farther away. Remnants of rocks and tree fragments flew past people. Liafu decided to ask why the guy had done something so destructive, but she didn't have time. Jinta interrupted her and immediately said that he had only planned to push back the landslide and not create devastation and destroy all the mountains. Huina was amused by the situation and only said that the landscape was a little different now. After the danger had passed the whole company, Jinta decided to ask the goddess how He-chan's mom was feeling right now. Liafu said that she alone would not be enough for the adult to fully recover, as her strength was already running out. They would need help, as the big dragon had a lot of health. However, the goddess added that she was able to save He-chan's mother from the negative effects, and therefore, the dragon will soon come to his senses. Everyone was happy about it, and Kina noted that it meant they didn't have to worry anymore. Suddenly, the conversation was interrupted by a growl, and Liafu and Jinta turned to see what was happening to the dragon. It turned out that the big dragon had woken up and was already up. She looked at the people around her, but did not react in any way. However, her attention was caught by a small dragon in the company of people, causing her eyes to widen. After a couple of moments, Jinta and Liafu smiled contentedly and heard no longer hostile sounds. The big dragon licked her daughter as a sign that she recognized her. The goddess, looking at this, noted that everything was fine now. Jinta also said that the adult finally recognized his child. Seeing how happy the dragons were together, the goddess asked if it would be better to leave them alone, to which she received a positive response from the guy. He added and said that they had come to reunite the family. Liafu was very upset and started crying. Jinta tried to cheer the girl up and asked her not to cry. However, the farewell was interrupted as the roar of a small dragon was heard. The company was no longer confronted by dragons, but by a woman with her daughter. She said that her child had told her everything about what had happened. Jinta and his companions were amazed that He-chan's mom was able to. The woman bowed and thanked her rescuers for their help, adding thanks for taking care of her child all this time. He-chan's mom also apologized for her recent behavior. Jinta was very embarrassed and noticed how impressionable the woman's form was and thought that she should not bow to him. Liafu only said that the young man was behaving inappropriately. He-chan's mom didn't understand what the young man was trying to tell her and asked him again. Jinta was finally able to answer that the woman shouldn't worry about anything, because they were just helping a friend. He-chan's mom noted that the guy fought beautifully side by side with the dragon of the flame of fire, which was beyond the power of every person. The woman also said that she was glad that her daughter knew such a brave warrior. Jinta replied that it would be wrong to say that he was the only one who cared about He-chan. The young man was modest and accepted the praise with difficulty. The young man said that even as a little dragon, He-chan had helped them all out many times. Quina and Liafu were a little embarrassed by Jinta's words, but he continued and said that He-chan was a very good girl. Deciding not to delay for a long time, the young man said that the rest of the care for He-chan now depends on her mother, since in the end it's better for children to be with their parents. He-chan didn't expect to hear such a thing and seemed to be a little confused. The girl protested because of this decision, but Jinta began to explain to her that they had agreed on this from the very beginning. He-chan's mom listened attentively to what the young man was saying, and he continued, concluding the thought that when they found the girl's parent, they would leave her, because she should no longer be far from her mother. The girl thought about it at first, and then remembered that there really was such a conversation. She remembered how she met Liafu, and how Jinta promised to help her find her parents. The young man tried to gently tell the girl that it seemed that their paths should part here because their common goal had been achieved. Liafu was also moved, and tears welled up in her eyes. The girl thanked her friend for allowing her to fly on herself, and the goddess also hoped that everything would be fine with her and her mother, even if they would be together now. Karina also said goodbye to the girl, thanking her for her help in the battles and also wishing her all the best in the future. Jinta wished Hichan to become a great dragon like her mother. Hichan, hearing all the words of encouragement and gratitude, sat on her mom's back and continued to cry. She was touched by how her friends treated her. Jinta smiled one last time, looking up at the sky at the retreating figure of a large dragon. He was happy for the girl, because she had finally found a family. A fishing line was lowered into the water, on which there was a bait for fish. The young man who owned the fishing rod was upset because he couldn't catch anything. A week after he helped Hichan find his mom, he was sitting on a small wooden pier that was located by the lake. The young man was puzzled by what he needed to do now. Kuina came up to the young man and called him, because she was told that dinner had already been prepared. Jinta turned around and was slightly surprised why the food was prepared so quickly. Arriving at the house, Liafu was in the kitchen, cooking dinner. She was happy to announce that she had already cooked the fish. Jinta, starting to taste the dishes that were on the table, reasoned that, although Liafu did not look like a person who cooks well, she managed to make a really delicious dinner. These words confused the girl. The goddess warned them that if they didn't go shopping soon, their game would be over. The young man did not understand what the girl meant and asked her the meaning of the phrase. However, it turned out that Jinta just didn't want to go shopping. He sighed heavily and said it would take him about half a day to get to the city. Kuina also noted that together with Hichan, they could have done it faster. Liafu repeated the name of the girl who lived with them a week ago and dropped the kitchen appliance she was eating with into a plate. Jinta and Kuina were a little confused and didn't realize that their words could hurt the girl sitting across from them. Liafu couldn't hold back her tears and, blushing, began to cry. The goddess did not forget the girl, and her mention brought her to tears. Liafu cried loudly, saying their friend's name, and the young man asked why the girl was reacting like that. Did she really miss her so much? Kuina came closer to the goddess to pat her on the head as a sign of comfort, and the young man said that he thought that in the last few days, she had become calmer about this fact. However, Jinta understood her feelings. Remembering the interaction of the girls, it was clear that Liafu really liked Hichan. She wouldn't have been able to get used to the fact that the girl was no longer living with them, but with her mother. Looking at Kuina, the guy thought that the girl felt the same way, although she did not show it. The truth was that Jinta missed the girl terribly, but it was clear that they had made the right decision by leaving her with her mother. Jinta went to bed and talked about how if they were going to the city tomorrow, they needed to get a good night's sleep. However, he was confused by the fact that his blanket was too warm, because he had only gone to bed a couple of minutes ago. At first, he thought that one of the girls had just put a bottle of warm water in his bed, but it just turned out to be Hichan. The young man picked her up and examined her. After calming down, Jinta just sat the girl down between his legs and decided to continue getting ready for bed. The young man covered himself and his girlfriend with a blanket and thought only that Hichan was very warm. It wasn't until some time later that Jinta realized that something was wrong and opened his eyes in surprise. He shouted the girl's name to make sure it was really her. The young man immediately asked why she was here now. Hichan replied, remembering what Jinta had told her earlier, that this house also belonged to her. Due to the fact that the girl also missed her friends, she flew back to their common home, because she just wanted to return. Jinta understood this, but it was still strange for him to hear it. She now has a house where she will be with her mother. The young man began to explain that no matter how much Liafu, Kuina, and he wanted to, they would never be able to replace the girl's mother. However, it seemed that Hichan didn't need it, because she wasn't looking for a replacement for her own mom. She said that they were friends. Hichan explained that she remembers everything they did together. They all ate, went to bed, and even fought side by side. She understood that her friends were humans and she was a dragon, so her worries wouldn't let her go. The girl turned to Jinta and asked if she could stay with them, even though she was not human. The young man smiled, pleased to hear such a sweet confession. He also understood that the four of them had become very close, so he was never against having a little dragon among them. The young man agreed, which made the girl very happy. She blushed slightly and bent down to hug her friend. Finally, Kuina and Liafu came to his room. They woke up because of the noise coming from Jinta's room. and now they saw that their friend was with them again. Everyone was happy and shouted that now Hichin was at home, welcoming her once again. But this time, after a week apart, the goddess was already lying on top of the girl, hugging her with all her might. Tears appeared on her face again, but now they were tears of happiness. Hichan decided to say that she is also very happy to be back at home. The girl also decided to tell her that her mother had told her that if she wanted to live with people, she should learn a lot. Meanwhile, Liafu continued to cry, and Jinta tried to calm her down. Hichan continued, and added that this was why she had been training hard to return home to her friends. Kina praised the girl, telling her that she had done a very good job. Hichan also added that her mom praised Jinta so much because she saw that he took great care of the girl. The woman also said that the young man clearly loves Hichan. The girl blushed a little and ended her story by saying that her mother said that eventually she and Jinta would be together and they would have eggs from which their children would be born. The young man fell silent and didn't know what to say to that. After that, Kuina laughed and noted that Hichan was very brave. The young man strongly disagreed with the conclusion of the dragon's mother, and Liafu was completely horrified by what she heard. After some time, a group of 4 people gathered and set off on a new journey. They were all looking in the same direction, and Jinta decided to ask if they were definitely at the entrance to the dungeon. The place they were in looked abandoned, with broken columns and fallen trees everywhere. The young man noticed that they were able to get to this dungeon faster than he expected. Liafu was not thrilled with where they were now and asked why they had to look for goods for some kind of shop at all. Jinta replied that they had no choice. The day after Hichan returned home, they all decided to go shopping in the city. When they arrived at one of the buildings, they received advice from an employee of a gambling store, where they often bought necessary things. The girl turned to Jinta and said that she had a suggestion for him to collect rare artifacts. If he does this, he will receive a certain reward. The employee said that now their store's catalog of awards had decreased, so the flow of visitors had stopped, and it was difficult to conduct business in such conditions. The young man, after looking around, agreed with such remarks. The young man decided to assume that perhaps this was due to the fact that he and his companions had bought everything, but received a negative response. The girl explained that a powerful explosion had recently occurred in their supplier's warehouse, which had destroyed many goods. The guy was surprised, because the explosion could not happen just like that. The young man decided to ask how it happened that such a sad event happened near the warehouse. The girl replied that she only knew about the possible cause from eyewitnesses. The worker continued and said that a huge cloud of flame that flew from the mountains hit the warehouse directly. Jinta and his companions immediately guessed what kind of explosion they were talking about now. The girl looked a little worried and added that there were no people in the warehouse, so no one was injured, but none of the goods could be saved from the fire. The employee also added that, at the moment, the shop does not have the opportunity to hire high-ranking specialists to help, so they could only hope for the help of the young man, because he was strong enough. Jinta agreed. He promised to help, which the employee of the gambling shop did not even immediately believe. Remembering why the company was now at the entrance to the dungeon, the young man said that what had happened was entirely his fault. Jinta thought that due to the fact that it was located near this city, there might not be anything left in it that could be mined, because many other people had visited the dungeon before them. Liafu tried to cheer up her friends, and said that she had heard about the deepest 7th floor of this dungeon, which only meant that no one dared to go below to explore something new. Kuina asked how the goddess knew this. Liafu did not disclose how she came to know this information, and only said that she knows it because she is a goddess. Kuina didn't understand what the girl meant. However, the goddess did not go into details and asked to believe her that there was definitely something below the 7th floor. Kuina, noticing that there was something ahead, tried to warn the girl about it. The goddess became confused and began to fall into space, which suddenly appeared under her feet. Jinta managed to grab Liafu by the stomach and pull her towards him. He knocked the girl back, preventing her from falling, and asked her to be careful. Jinta looked at the girl and asked if she was okay. Liafu was a little confused and agreed. He warned her that you should always be on your guard in the dungeon, to which the girl immediately agreed and apologized. Hichan, seeing this, said she was jealous of Liafu, because the guy was very worried about the goddess. The girl asked Kuina if Jinta would save her if she also fell into the pit like the girl. But Kuina replied that there was no point. The dragon could fly. After walking a little further, the company reached a room. The young man read the sign and said that they were on the 7th floor. He-chan asked where they should go next, as they seemed to have reached a dead end. The young man exhaled and said that not only were there no treasures here, but there weren't even any monsters in general. Liafu also noted that this is where the descent should be, so you should look more carefully. The girl asked to look at something. Jinta asked what the girl had found. Quina was standing next to a wall that had some kind of inscription on it. The girl could not read what was written on the wall, as the language used for writing was the ancient writing of spirits. Liafu confirmed this fact and became interested in what was written in front of them. Kuina asked the goddess if the girl could read what was written, but they were interrupted by Jinta, who came closer and wanted to look at the inscription himself. It seemed that the young man understood something just by looking at the writing. After reading the directions on the wall, the guy shook his head in search of something. Kuina asked what Jinta was looking for, but he didn't answer. Having found what he was looking for, the young man pressed on one of the tiles. After some time, the wall to the right of the inscription moved away. The girls were shocked and couldn't believe their eyes. Liafu asked how the young man understood what needed to be done in order to find the hidden passage. The young man only said that it was very easy. Jinta added that he learned this from the writing on the wall, after which he received a question from Quina about how he was able to read this language. The goddess, still confused by what had happened, also asked the guy how he could learn this writing. Jinta was confused because he did not know how to explain his action. He was only able to read what was written on the wall because everything was written in Japanese characters. The inscription said that a guard lived below. If someone can read the specified text, they should click on the square stone at the bottom. There was also a good luck message on the wall for whoever did it. The young man became the guide of his entire team and pointed out the right path. As he walked on, he kept talking about where to turn or go straight. Once on the new floor, it turned out that this was the 10th floor. There were many chests on it, as no one had ever managed to get this far before. This meant that they would be running an errand from the gambling shop. However, the guy had the impression that there was someone else in the room they were in. He-chan, upon hearing this, noted that it was true. Quina suggested that perhaps there could be the same guards that the young man had read about when they were upstairs. Jinta assumed that the 10th floor was the lair of the boss, but the goddess doubted it. Liafu did not doubt what she was saying, and noted that there could be no boss in the dungeon for beginners, especially since it was located near the city. The girl also added that she would defeat him, if anything, with her new skill. The young man looked at the scoreboard, which showed the characteristics of the girl, and realized that in addition to skills for purification and healing, she had abilities that helped in battle. The goddess said that she used to love boxing very much, so she still has some fighting skills. Jinta asked why she needed to practice such a sport, because it was strange for such a girl. Liafu did not go into details of her hobby, and simply replied that she wanted to pursue it. Then the guy asked if the goddess had managed to achieve the results she expected to get. The girl was embarrassed, saying no. However, due to the ambiguity of the uttered phrase, the girl standing behind laughed a little, which embarrassed Liafu. She thought the guy was laughing at her and started hitting him. The young man was not hurt, rather amused, but asked to stop. After stopping fooling around, Liafu asked them to quickly pick up the treasures and return home before the guards they were talking about noticed and attacked them. Quina, however, shouted that it was too late. He-chan, seeing something behind the young man, asked him to turn around quickly. The young man did not understand what his companions wanted from him, but turned his head in the opposite direction. Right in front of him and the goddess was a large stone monster that was already swinging at them to strike. The big talking lump said loudly that it needed to destroy the intruders who had entered the 10th floor. The monster was a man of few words and decided to strike at the place where Jinta and Liafu were standing. The floor immediately broke through and rocks flew in all directions. Kuina and He-chan, who were standing on the other side, saw that the stone monster had struck with his hand. Due to the great force of his own blow, the stone monster did not even realize that something was wrong. The monster was silent, but one of his arms, which he used to attack, fell apart from the guy's ability to use his sword. Jinta wasn't scared at all, unlike the girl who fell to the ground out of fear. The guy decided to make a joke and told the goddess to deal with the monster herself using her new skills. Liafu told the young man to be careful. The girl noticed that, most likely, it was one of the technologies of the spiritual craft of bygone eras. The monster that lost its arm a few minutes ago has already fully recovered, which meant that he was an immortal giant golem. Jinta, however, wasn't scared or nervous at all. On the contrary, it became much more interesting for him to fight because his opponent was able to regenerate. The young man was confident that he would win even over such an opponent. Hichan also did not stay away, and has already assumed the form of a dragon to help the young man in a difficult battle. Quina, coming closer to Liafu, asked if she was okay, to which she received a positive response, although she was not entirely sure. A little while later, Hichan fell down next to the girls. The girl hit herself, which almost made her cry. Liafu immediately approached the girl and began to heal her with her staff. Quina realized that, as it turned out, their opponent was very difficult. She said it was too crowded in such a room. Hichan hit the ceiling of the dungeon. Quina watched the duel and noted that Jinta was clearly stronger than the stone monster, but Liafu added that due to regeneration, this difference in strength did not give an advantage. Quina realized that the fight could continue. Jinta did not think about changing tactics yet and only noted that his opponent was very stubborn, so he tried to hit again as hard as possible. Liafu, seeing how the young man was fighting, asked if he had any plan. However, Jinta did not pay attention to anything and continued to fight with his strength, striking with his sword. The guy decided to check what would happen if he simply did not allow the stone monster to regenerate without stopping the flow of blows. Hichan realized what the young man wanted to do, because it took time to recover, which the young man did not want to give the monster. Quina also supported the strategy, but the goddess was not sure of the success of such a plan. Jinta didn't listen to anyone, and said that he didn't care what was more effective. He would just fight the monster for as long as it took for it to stop. The guy attacked the enemy more fiercely each time, not even allowing him to strike back. Jinta suggested that he stop, because if he didn't, he would simply turn into a pile of stones. However, the stone monster wasn't going to back down, saying the same word every time. The stone glittered, but the young man decided that it did not look like a crystal. The stats board that appeared indicated that the stone was very rare and magical. Looking back at the monster, the young man realized that it had stopped and was no longer moving. He assumed that the stone he took out was the source of his energy. Hearing this, Quina was very surprised. The girl continued to think about how the technology of spiritual craft could be here, and even so advanced that she could speak and move. Jinta inquired and asked what kind of spiritual craft it was. Liafu explained that it is understood literally, since such tools and devices are created by spirits. Legend had it that a long time ago, humans, spirits, and other races joined forces to fight back against a terrible deity terrorizing the world. Then the spirit of the earth gave birth to golems in order for them to help fight evil. The stone that the young man found was really magical and helped control monsters. Ancient texts indicated that such stones also increase strength. Jinta wondered which inscriptions Quina was talking about and assumed that these were the ones he had read on the way here. And, for example, the one inside the stone golem. Liafu saw that the young man decided to get inside the monster and began to worry about him. The guy said he had an idea. The young man cleared the place that was covered with stones with a small knife and looked at the sign. The young man brought a magic stone to the cleared area and applied it, telling the monster to wake up. The stone monster really woke up. The stone acted as it was told about and really gave strength to the monster. Liafu doubted the correctness of the decision because the golem began to regenerate again. But the guy said that everything was under control. The young man decided to try to give the golem an order and see if he would carry it out. Jinta ordered the monster to take Kalina and lift her as high as he could. The girl was not thrilled with this. The golem was silent. However, later the monster still obeyed and taking the girl in his arms really lifted her up. Quina was in shock. Realizing what was happening, she screamed loudly because such a huge creature could harm her. The goddess asked the young man why the monster began to obey him. After that, the guy explained that he had rewritten the text on the slab inside him. Jinta wrote that the golem should follow all his orders. After all the machinations, the teen remembered why they came to the dungeon in the first place. Jinta was in charge of everyone, and with the help of their new ward, all the treasures seemed to have been collected from the chests. Jinta decided to use his assistant and politely asked him to help them lift the heavy lid of the box. Liafu also asked the young man to stop using the ancient weapon from the legends. The monster lifted the lid of the chest. after which Jinta was very surprised by what was actually in it. The young man realized that in front of him was a hammer of the highest rank. Liafu was also impressed by what she saw. Ki-chan did not understand the general admiration and asked if this weapon was really that good, after which Jinta said that no one would even want to give such a rarity. The weapon was called Mjolnir. Kuina knew a little about this weapon and said that it was also created using a spiritual craft to destroy the evil deity she was talking about, mentioning an old legend. The golem was guarding what was here. However, as soon as the girl took hold of the hilt, the weapon slipped out of her hands and fell back into the chest, and Kuina screamed in surprise, which puzzled all her friends. The girl explained that as soon as she picked up the hammer, it jumped out of her hands due to the fact that its handle was covered with some kind of slime, which was now dripping onto the floor from Kuina's palm. She obviously hadn't expected this and blushed. Jinta, seeing this, asked what it could be. The girl suggested that perhaps it was a trap, so that the hammer would not be so easy to steal. Liafu screamed in surprise as Kuina decided to wipe her hand on her. Ki-chan saw that there were some inscriptions not far from them again and showed them to the young man. Jinta looked and realized that the text was written in the same language as before. The guy read that the weapon will go to the one who defeats the golem. It was also written there that Mjolnir has a mighty power, so it is not so easy to pick up. The inscription also said that if an unworthy mortal person touches it, to the hammer, streams of a white gel-like substance will flow from the tip of its handle. Jinta thought that this was more like a bad action. It was further written that the Great Spirit hoped that this instrument would be in the hands of a selfless person. However, Liafu thought that the spirit itself was hardly as selfless as the owner of the hammer wanted it to be. The young man decided that since this weapon was so rare, he definitely needed to take it with him. He ordered the golem to pick up the hammer and put it in the black sphere that he had already opened. The monster obeyed the order and, although he didn't really want to, picked up the hammer by the other part so as not to get dirty. After that, the company took all the treasures with them and went back to the city to give them to the gambling shop as they promised.